Welcome to the November 4th, 2013 Apply Texas Advisory Committee meeting here in scenic Austin, Texas. Glad to have all of these wonderful committee members with us today, and visitors, welcome. We will jump right into our agenda immediately. We've got a long agenda of items today that we'll try to cover. So without further ado, we'll begin with introductions, and we'll do introductions around the table, and then I'll invite our visitors. If you would like to identify yourself, we'd love to get to know who you are as well. My name is Ethan Logan. I'm the Executive Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Texas Tech University, and currently your former chair of the Apply Texas Committee.
Jose Rios, Coordinating Board.
I'm Stacy Silverman. I'm the Interim Assistant Commissioner for the Workforce, Academic Affairs, and Research Division of the Coordinating Board, and I'm also the Deputy Assistant Commissioner for Universities and Health-Related Institutions. I'm glad that you all are here this morning, and I look forward to hearing the discussion.
Lisa Hernandez, Angelo State University. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions.
Tim Brace. I work at the University of Texas at Austin, and I manage the Apply Texas technical team.
Trey Hadaway, Director of Enrollment Management and Marketing at Kilroy College.
Melinda Carroll, Associate Registrar, North Central Texas College, and I'm here on behalf of Carrie Ford.
One thing, whenever you speak, could you please put your microphone on?
Priscilla Medina. I'm the new Dean for Enrollment and Registration Services at Laredo Community College.
Leah Vineyard, Interim Director of Admissions at Midwestern State University.
I'm Dave Landry. I'm the Director of Data Exchange and Transcript Services from the National Student Clearinghouse.
Good morning. I'm Linda Kluck. I'm the Executive Director of Admissions and Records and Registrar at Austin Community College.
Good morning. My name is David Jimenez. I'm Associate Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Services at Tarrant County College.
I'm Kevin Davis, Associate Director of Admissions at Stephen F. Austin State University.
Cassandra La Chica Chavez with the University of Texas at El Paso. I am the Director of Admissions and the Interim Registrar.
Good morning. Kedra Iship, Vice Provost and Director of Admissions at the University of Texas at Austin.
Hi, Stephanie Anderson, Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management at Texas State.
Senior Associate Director of Admissions, Texas A&M.
You were so halfway out the door, aren't you?
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance, and our visitors. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate you. I'm going to reiterate what Jose said, that make sure that you are keying your mic for comments. I think that has a lot to do with also triggering the camera tracking as this meeting is being web simulcast as we speak. You're all famous. Welcome once again. Our first item on our agenda is the election of a chair and co-chair for this next year. So that will be ongoing or forward from this meeting for the remainder of this year. And the process for nomination is from the floor. And so I would invite nominations at this time.
I'd like to nominate Ethan Logan for re-election to the post.
I will second that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Being none, I appreciate very much the opportunity to serve in this capacity one more year. I respectfully accept your nomination, and I need to now move for the selection of a co-chair. So I would invite anybody's nomination or the opportunity for appointment, if seeing no nomination from the floor at this time.
I nominate Trey Hadaway.
Oh, it's fair.
Second on that.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Trey Hadaway nominated for co-chair. Are there any other nominations? All right, being none, we will move forward with the selection of co-chair, Mr. Trey Hadaway from Kilgore College. Thank you, Trey. Our next item of the agenda is the approval of minutes from the last meeting. I'll give you an opportunity to locate your minutes, and we'll invite any input for revision at this time.
It shows that Cheryl Rich wasn't at the last meeting, and I was. So you might want to add that.
Any other revisions or comment on the agenda? I'd like to take the opportunity to suspend the order of the meeting's agenda in order to accommodate some of our visitors who are here to provide presentation to this committee. Specifically, the agenda item SPEEDE update. We have visitors from TEA and the Clearinghouse who are here to speak to us, and I'd like to move that item in this order to the beginning of our meeting to help accommodate their travel and their attendance. So, if without any objection, we'll move forward with that revision to the order of the meeting. All right, gentlemen, I invite you to let us know what's going on.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Dave Landry. I'm the Director of Data Exchange and Transcript Services at the National Student Clearinghouse. And I appreciate the opportunity to come before you today to talk about the transition of the SPEEDE server from UT to the Clearinghouse. When Tim gave me a call and asked me to come down to make this presentation, there were two objectives. One, just to provide a brief introduction on what the Clearinghouse is and what we do. And secondly, talk about the transition of the server from the UT team to the Clearinghouse. So if that will meet everybody's objectives, we can go ahead and get started. What I'd like to try to cover in this presentation is just a brief introduction as to what is the National Student Clearinghouse, what do we do. I'd like to talk about the timing of the SPEEDE server transition, some of the operating principles the Clearinghouse is applying to managing SPEEDE on a go-forward basis, what was the approach that we used in the transition, what changed, and finally talk about some planned activities and some potential enhancements to the server itself. The National Student Clearinghouse is a nonprofit organization that was funded by the higher ed community in 1993. We're headquartered in Herndon, Virginia, which is about 20 miles west of Washington, right next to Dulles International Airport. And our mission is to serve the education community by facilitating the exchange and understanding of student enrollment, performance, and related information. We are a very data-driven organization, and virtually everything we do is at the behest of the higher ed community who's made a request for the Clearinghouse to provide a set of services. We have a rather robust database of enrollment and degree records that encompasses about 141 million students at this time, and that grows obviously every year. For how we go about doing our business, we collaborate with advocacy organizations such as ACRO and PESC to drive innovation and industry standards. If anybody is unfamiliar with PESC, it's the post-secondary organization that deals with education standards. And currently there's about 3,500 colleges and universities enrolling over 98% of students in public and private institutions that participate in some way, shape, or form with the Clearinghouse. I'm just going to take a minute and go through some of the brief services we provide. Two of our main products are Degree Verify and Enrollment Verify, where we, for verification purposes, we ensure for employers, background search firms, and recruiters that the degrees that individuals list on their applications and such have actually been attained by that individual. Right now, we represent about 85% of U.S. four-year degrees, and we process about 3 million degrees annually. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about the number of transactions we process for each of these services is to give everybody a comfort level with the number of transactions that run through the Clearinghouse relative to the SPEEDE server itself. On the Enrollment Verify side, we provide online verifications for student providers. Right now, we represent about 90% of currently enrolled students in the U.S., and last year we processed more than 1 million enrollment verification requests. From the transcript services perspective, we provide the facility with about 600 schools that are active with transcript services at this point in time for their current students and alumni to order and track their transcripts online. We are currently undergoing a integration with Ellucian for 2 of their 3 student information systems, Colleague and Banner, to provide an automated interface. Their 3rd information system, Power Campus, will follow suit in 2014. And last year, we processed more than 2 million transcript requests through transcript services. The Clearinghouse also does a lot of enrollment reporting for student financial aid to lending organizations and NSLDS. And we also have a research center that conducts research at the state and national level and produces a series of signature reports. We have done 5 to date, and all of which can be found on our website should anybody be interested. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just talk about the timing of this transition of the SPEEDE server. This started in the spring of 2012 when UT approached the Clearinghouse on transitioning the SPEEDE server itself. Those conversations progressed, and in the fall of 2012, UT and the Clearinghouse reached an agreement on transitioning the server to the Clearinghouse. In the spring of 2013, the Clearinghouse and UT teams began collaborating on a transition. And there was a major announcement made at the annual ACRO conference last year. In the summer, the Clearinghouse installed a new SPEEDE server. One of the differences that I'll talk about in the What's New slide is the differences in servers from the way it was hosted at UT and the way we're hosting it at the Clearinghouse. In the July, August, September timeframe, there were a number of communications that went out. We made use of the SPEEDE listserv as well as the email addresses that were within SPEEDE. There were 3 postings to the listserv, and the UT team sent out, I believe, 2 emails to everybody who was listed within the SPEEDE server itself, making them aware of the transition. And last but not least, on October 12th, the transition completed, and it was transitioned to the Clearinghouse, and we've been operating it since that date. Some of the operating principles we've established for SPEEDE is that all innovation and enhancements will continue to be driven by the education community. We continue to work closely with advocacy groups such as ACRO and the ACRO SPEEDE Committee. Since we are very data-centric and our mission is geared towards the exchange of student data records, we want to ensure that there's a high level of interoperability within the data exchange environment. We are open to participating with other organizations in exchanging data. We're committed to continuing to participate in the free and open exchange of education records and data among the various network access providers. The Clearinghouse will continue to provide SPEEDE services at no cost. We will continue to make sure that the SPEEDE is an open platform and that SPEEDE will continue to adhere to standards as they have been set by PESC, by ANSI for EDI, as well as to conform to new standards as they emerge. Regarding the transition approach itself, our objective was to recreate the SPEEDE server within the Clearinghouse environment as is. We wanted to minimize introducing any errors during the transition. We fully understood that SPEEDE had been in place for approximately 18 years and that there was a lot of work that went into that. Just transitioning to a new environment was going to be a fairly large task in and of itself, and we did not want to run the risk of introducing any errors by changing any of its functions or features at that time. I can't go much further without talking about the partnership with the UT team. It was a fantastic partnership. They were a great group to work with, starting with Shelby and working down to the actual SPEEDE team of Andy Lubis and Shan Evans. They were very open, inviting, shared all the information, answered our questions. It was just a tremendous work experience. I can't say enough for working with that team. It was tremendous. We're also talking about once the transition occurred, how will we continue to maintain SPEEDE? We wanted to make sure that the SPEEDE server was maintained within the Clearinghouse production environment as any other server would be. That included ensuring that it was part of the penetration vulnerability scans that we do multiple times during the course of the year. We wanted to get it into the schedule so any security patches or software updates could be applied to make sure it's current with what's available in the marketplace today. And we also wanted to monitor system performance. So what changed? For those of you who have been using SPEEDE, SPEEDE was basically, there was a front end and a back end to it. Each of the servers were one CPU-based servers. One of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to move the front end server, which took the files as they were submitted to SPEEDE, and replace that with a piece of software that we have internal to the Clearinghouse called MoveIt. This is commercially available software from a company called Ipswich. The reason why we wanted to make that change was because using MoveIt allowed us to encrypt the file from the time it was received to the time it was passed to the back-end server, processed, and sent out to the recipient. That allows us to encrypt it both at rest and in transit, which was a bit of an improvement of a security piece from where it was originally. We had talked to the UT team about this. They as well felt that it was a good move, and so we went forward with that replacement. That was basically the change that occurred with SPEEDE. Outside of hosting it, as I said before, SPEEDE at UT ran on 2 single CPU servers. We have implemented this on an enterprise-wide server that contains 16 CPUs and approximately 200 gigabytes of memory, which is a significant capacity for handling the load that we have. We also have created a SPEEDE website that can be found at speedeserver.org, where we are hosting its content. The reports that were available on the UT SPEEDE website continue to be available. We see this as a good vehicle for hosting additional content, messages, any upcoming events, or plans of that nature. This next slide shows just a screenshot of what the website looks like. You can see across the top, you can easily navigate to where the reports are. If you go to that tab, you'll find every report since, I believe it was 1995, just as you did at UT. The only change we made to this was in registering for the service. There used to have to download a form, fill it out, and fax it in. Now it's a web-based form, so people can enter their information online. But again, it's the same exact information that was available before. From a where do we go from here perspective, a couple things I'd like to talk about in terms of planned activities and some potential enhancements. One of the lessons that we learned was that communications is certainly key to any change to the SPEEDE server, given the wide range of individuals and organizations that are using it. We use the listserv to communicate this in the email. You know, what I'd like to do is to be able to continue to use the listserv to gather feedback on changes desired by the community. One of the things I'd like to do is reach out to see what the community needs the SPEEDE server to do going forward, so that, you know, it's a service for the community. It's not the Clearinghouse's service. So input to that is key. We also want to continue to find better ways to effectively communicate plans, messages, etc. One of the lessons that we learned through this is that everybody didn't always get the right information at the right time, right? What's key to that is to make sure that everybody that's in the registrant table, we have up-to-date information on, so we can make sure that when information is pushed, everybody gets access to it. I talked about creating a web form to capture some of the registration information. We'd like to continue and complete the registration process in an automated form for both organizations and their agents if need be. Security is always a concern at the Clearinghouse, and student data is of high importance to us. To maintain industry standards for those organizations that are using public and private keys, you know, over time we would like to get everybody to move to a 2048-bit encryption level, which provides a higher level of security. When we did a brief review of some organizations that are currently in the registrant list, they use 1024-bit encryption. I'm not trying to get overly technical here, but just we want to make sure that we raise the level of security to make sure that everybody's data is protected to the greatest extent possible. Some of the other enhancements we had talked about, we have received some feedback that people would like to pull their files when they're available. Currently in the SPEEDE world, deliveries are made on a schedule, so it's pushed. That way, we would like to look at potentially offering both options to make it easier for an organization to get their data when and where they need it. And we talked about, I talked a little bit about standards before. There's a task force within Task for Common Data Services. They have an EdXchange project that is about the establishing an open data exchange network for education, and we would very much like to participate in that. So I hope through the course of this brief presentation I described a little bit of what the Clearinghouse is and what we do, how we went through the SPEEDE journey. As we move forward, I'm looking at 3 different perspectives of SPEEDE. The first is we have to make sure that it operates consistently, right? We have to make sure that normal care and service need of the servers, that they're maintained properly, that we take proper backup, so in the event anything should occur, we can fall back to where we were at the point of the last backup. From a tactical level, data security is very important to us. We want to make sure that we continue to enhance performance so that we can handle the throughput and people get the files on the schedules they need. We want to make sure that as the service grows, we continue to evolve the capacity planning aspect of this, and we'll continue to do that to make sure that we have ample computer capacity to handle the volume that will come our way. And finally, from a strategic level, again, this is a service for the education community. We want to solicit feedback and input on what enhancements should be. Right now, the process that I'm envisioning is we would gather that input, we would send it out, the complete list for some type of feedback on how to prioritize these items, and then turn that into an action plan. So I hope that addresses some of the concerns around how SPEEDE migrated from UT to the Clearinghouse. At this point in time, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. One question I have is that would you mind making the presentation available to the committee?
No.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And so I invite comment or questions from the committee.
Mr. Landry, can you share what happened in the T-Rex issue with the transmissions?
With the transmissions? That's something that Glenn and I were talking about beforehand. For some reason, the transmissions seem to occur, and then once the transmission stops, there seems to be a drop in the communication between TEA and the Clearinghouse. We have engaged Ipswich, the vendor that we talked about, I've engaged our Director of Infrastructure and the individuals that are supporting SPEEDE, who have spent some time down at UT learning the system. So right now, I think we're at a point where it's a relative collaborative effort to try to resolve that. We're committed to make this work, and we'll stay at it until it works.
So you're addressing what happened on October 12th that created this, and you and Glenn's got his hand up too, and I know you'll be talking about this as well. And then from here forward, how we're not going to have to go through that again, correct?
I'm sorry, on October 12th?
Yes. That's when we stopped getting, we still don't have them from October 12th.
Right, and so what Glenn and I talked about before the session started was the fact that the registrant table and the email addresses that are in SPEEDE are not reflective of the right people who need to receive that communication. So we will go ahead and we will take actions to correct that, to make sure that that does not reoccur.
Okay, thank you. And I know, Glenn, you're going to be talking with us as well.
Yeah, I'd like to give kind of just a
Glenn, can we invite you up to the dais? Thank you, sir.
Let me just kind of give you a recap of what happened. On the 14th, Monday, after the conversion, we began getting reports that transcripts weren't being sent to the SPEEDE server. So up until that point in time, we had no knowledge of this conversion whatsoever. As Dave indicated, our registrant table email address is UTEDI, which is actually used by the TREX application for internal communications, and so it's not a manned email. So we didn't get any type of forewarning or knowledge that this transaction or this conversion was going to occur. So going forward, the first thing I need to do is get myself listed on the listserv, and I'll do that. I would also like to establish some person-to-person contact as a communication vehicle, so that if we have issues in the future, then I get a direct conversation with somebody as opposed to relying on a listserv or something like that. So we need to establish that, and we can discuss how that should occur going forward. So in any event, on the 14th, we noticed that transactions weren't being completed. By the 16th, we figured out, working with the development teams with NSC, we got the appropriate IP addresses and those things for the server changes and made those available. And on the 16th, we were able to start sending transactions again at about 9:30 in the morning. Unfortunately, the transactions that had been queued up since the 12th up until 9:30 on the 16th, and there were about 6,000 of those, we were not able to recover. And so what we had to do was ask the high schools to resend those. In the interim, I had asked the high schools if, because of the time concerns that some of them had, to go ahead and send transcripts via alternative methods, printed or whatever that is appropriate. And so now they theoretically should be sending new transcripts to you via TREX for those 6,000 or so that were missing. So you may very well get duplicates, one in TREX and one on paper. So we've as of the 16th, as I said, we reestablished our communication, and now the ongoing issue that we have is that because of some configuration changes, and I think it's because of the MoveIt or the change with the MoveIt software that David mentioned, What happens is we establish a connection with the server, and as long as there's transactions coming in, that connection stays alive, and we're able to process during the day, just like we've always have. But in the afternoon, the evening comes around about 6 or 6:30. It seems like every day, nobody's sending transcripts through T-Rex anymore. That connection drops, it times out, and then when we go back to reestablish that connection, when a new transaction comes in, that won't reestablish. And so we've got a failure there, and we're working with NSC to try to figure that out. So once we get that resolved, then we should be back in a normal case. So what we're having to do is basically every morning restart the Tomcat server on T-Rex, and that redrives then the process and reestablishes the connection. So at this point in time, to me, it doesn't make sense that we can establish a connection when we restart, but we can't reestablish it, during the course of the day when we need to. So that's what we have to work out right now. That's basically where we're at.
Are there is there activity then that's lost from that 6 p.m. follow-up?
No. And once now that they're coming in, if they're out there, when we restart, we redrive those. So we're not losing anything.
Thank you.
What do you think that might be the timeline to resolve kind of this latter part of the issue?
Well, I hope that we can get it this week, and it really depends on my developer, Siv Menda, here is with me today. They're looking at the code, and let me back up just a little bit. We have a new maintenance team on T-Rex as well, so they are not familiar with the code as much as the prior contractor that wrote T-Rex. So they're having to do a little bit of a learning curve on the application itself. So they're looking through the code to see specifically where the reconnection code is, looking perhaps and see if it's different than the code gets driven at the restart. And we've got a suggestion from NSC that we include a password. Typically, when we do the connection, we provide a certificate, which is the preferred method of establishing connection, and we don't send a password. Well, according to the NSC folks, we should probably also send the password, because if the certificate fails, then the logic will fall back and use the password to establish the connection. So that's probably way too technical, but that's what we're looking at doing right now, and that's really a workaround that should resolve the issue. So again, hopefully we'll get that later this week. But as far as you're concerned, we're monitoring and we're watching, and we know when we have a failure, and we will do a restart. And in fact, we were talking about perhaps doing a restart every morning. What we don't know is if we do a restart and then there's no transactions within 20 minutes and times out again, have we done that restart for nothing? Right, so we have to kind of test that.
Are you developing a communication plan with us for when those issues come up like that, so that we know something's failed, we're on it, just something to keep us in the loop?
Well, I do have the T-Rex information listserv that I think most people have signed up for. That was initially established for the vendors, but there's a lot of users who are signed up on that.
I think I tried to get on that and it told me I couldn't.
Really?
Maybe it knows I'm retiring.
Yeah, there's no restriction. We don't exclude Texas A&M from it at all. So
that's not our doing, Cheryl. We didn't.
Question. I mean, we know that from time to time there's the possibility of issues. It concerns me that we lost some. Is there a way in the future to have a recovery model so that we don't lose them? I mean, I think that part concerns me going forward.
Well, right, and it kind of surprised us that we lost them as well, and we should not have. They should have been in the log, and I guess if we went back and wrote some code or something or other, we could have perhaps got those back. But from a timing perspective, it's probably faster for them to just resend them, right? But as we this time, right? So as we go forward, we'll look at what we need to do to recover those in the future.
Can you share with us the listserv address so that we can have it in the minutes so that the rest of us can get on?
I don't have it off the top of my head.
No, later, so it'll be in the minutes.
Yeah, I'll provide that.
I have just one question about the high school constituent side. Are they being notified about this information, or the transactional delay or the technical difficulty?
Yes.
And the only reason I ask is because as partners in this approach to higher education, that they're important in helping communicate this information to the students and their families who are very concerned about the lack of transmission of transcripts. And inevitably we'll request another one or two or three, and so it's a facilitated frustration that I hope that we can avoid together by making sure that we have a standard response to these situations as they go forward. So
we did communicate. There's 3 vehicles that we have for communication to the T-Rex users themselves, and I don't directly communicate to the end user base. I go through the education service centers and send out an email to them, who then in turn contact their districts, and then their districts, accordingly goes to the high schools. We also have a broadcast message on the T-Rex homepage, and we broadcast the information there. And now, not everyone reads those. And then thirdly, many of the high schools are signed up for the T-Rex information listserv. So that's the third communication leg.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Other questions for either Mr. Landry or Mr. Shelton? We appreciate very much your time and coming out to see us today. That means a great deal to us. Tim, did you have a comment?
It's really not a question. I just want to thank both of y'all for being here and taking those questions, and especially thank Dave for coming out and to echo from the University of Texas perspective. I don't directly manage the people who are handling SPEEDE, but I do work with them and saw some of this and contribute and was involved in some of this in some of the meetings and such. And several people came out several times from Virginia, and they were easy to work with, and they're very professional. And I think for the purposes of this community, obviously there always seem to be little bumps along the way to get things going, and sometimes bigger bumps. But I think that this, in the end, will be a very good move for this group to be handling the SPEEDE. This is what they do, as opposed to the registrar's office at a university. Especially as the need for this goes, the numbers that go on, their ability. This is what they do, and so their ability to have to provide backups and provide service, I think, is going to be superior. And I really appreciate your coming with us to talk with us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Mr. Hadaway.
One last thing. One of the folks that I'm in touch with and who know I'm part of the committee just had a question of the transition that you mentioned. That they had mentioned that they'd had some hiccups getting to that, but wanted to, if you would characterize the transition, how that transition went this weekend, and has there been any feedback from any of the institutions, other institutions?
The transition of the SPEEDE server occurred in the middle of October. Yeah. So there were some schools that had some initial bumps. Part of that had to do with some schools did not change their firewall rules to send to our new IP address. So some schools were aware, but they still had the UT IP address. So when they tried to send, it wasn't going anywhere. Once some of those issues were resolved, things seemed to flow much better. I checked last week before I left. I the vast majority of folks are working fairly well right now. I know we're sending and receiving on a daily basis. I know we're committed to working with Glenn and his team to make sure that this gets resolved. So I think we're in a pretty good place right now.
Glenn, one of the things that you had said is perhaps look at a unified communication point going forward from TEA, and I would recommend, Jose, as we do it, something through TEA to the coordinating board, interagency, and then we work at a distribution from coordinating board to us. And so perhaps that will be the easiest way for you to communicate with us about these situations as we go forward. We'll try to make it a two-way. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments, questions from the committee? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right, I'd like to return to the order of the agenda, and we'll begin now with the coordinating board update. Mr. Rios.
Okay. We're going to focus on 3 bills, and we're here to answer any other questions about any other bill, but we're going to focus on Senate Bill 215, the sunset bill in regards to the advisory committees, the HB 5 regarding the uniform admission policy, and House Bill 2099 regarding creating an application for nursing students. We're going to begin with Senate Bill 215. Dr. Silverman will do this update.
Thank you, Jose. As many of you know, we went through the sunset process, which is a rather rigorous process looking at all the activities and duties and responsibilities the agency had. I'm pleased to say that the legislature did authorize the coordinating board through 2025, so that is a positive. Some notable changes were made. One of the sunset recommendations was to ensure that during our board meetings that the public have an ability to address the board directly. We've put some allowances in place and have allowed for public input at all our committee meetings and all our board meetings as well. So that's been in place for about a year now. Some significant changes were made to advisory committees, most notably the limitations related to the number of advisory committees that the coordinating board can have. So really the number of advisory committees have been sort of streamlined. So you all and the work that you do is very important, and you are an advisory committee. We also, as a result of the sunset legislation, passed rules most recently that were reviewed by the board during their just a couple weeks ago, last week, I can't recall, board meeting, which authorized and really put into rule, I think, the information that you all have as a handout. So it does kind of go over exactly just codifying what we've had in place for quite some time. It really aligns the advisory committees with Government Code Chapter 2110, limits the number of members to no more than 24, and also just lays out what the responsibilities of advisory committees are. Additionally, the appointments to advisory committees are now made directly by the board. So you all will be getting letters if you're up for reappointment or your institution's up for reappointment directly from the board chair. It's no longer from the commissioner. So that is it, or from staff from that perspective. Of note, regarding your advisory committee, specifically Apply Texas, there was only one somewhat minor change, although you may all think it's a little bit more major. Members shall serve, instead of terms of 2 years, now you all will serve staggered terms of up to 3 years. So that is the change that affected you. So retirement might not be an option. So That concludes my presentation on Senate Bill 215. It was a really interesting legislative session, and a lot of roles and responsibilities were changed a little bit. Most notably, I think one final thing I want to make sure that you all know, we're going to be relying on stakeholder input for an awful lot of information. So what we really want to make sure that happens is that we communicate with the folks at the institutions who need to know the information. So we'll be relying on you all a little bit more to help us do that, and encourage you all to ask us anything you need, anything you want. Let us know your questions. Let us know your concerns. So we appreciate what you do. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions about Senate Bill 215, Sunset Bill reauthorization, and advisory committee designations?
One comment about the 3-year staggering years. The ones that were approved already, those are going to be 2-year terms. So next summer, hopefully we'll have nominations during May. We're going to start a little bit early because nominations have to be approved by the board now. So nominations will be in April, May, and we'll go into the July, August board meeting. Those nominations will have a 3-year term at that point. But the ones what we currently have is the people that have a 1 year right now, and the ones that have 2 years are going to stay the same.
All right.
Okay. The next update is House Bill 5 regarding the uniform admission policy. Again, at the last board meeting, the board approved the amendment, the changes to the policy. The policy actually just added the distinguished level of achievement under the foundation program for the top 10%. It also did away with the other admission provision. Now, with the other admission provision, students can actually apply to a 4-year institutions with just a minimum plan. They don't. Again, they can apply. It's going to be the institutional's responsibility to come up with the admission policy for those to create a holistic admission review for those students. So before the admission, if a student was in the top 10% and didn't have recommended plan, they couldn't attend your institution. Now they can if the institution has, if they meet the institutional admission policy for that category of students. UT Austin actually submitted comments on this, and we provided the agenda item with our official responses. So if you have any additional questions about the House Bill 5 uniform admission policy, I'll be happy to answer those.
Do we know when the new form's going to be out? Because it's hard to implement this without the form.
Yeah, the form, we actually have to, we're working with TEA. The State Board of Education has to approve the curriculum before we can revise the form. But yeah, we're working with TEA on that. And we're not sure how long it's going to take us.
I think as I understand it,
their board members, they have to read an agenda item 4 times. So it takes a little longer for them to approve changes like that.
I think as I understand it, that even comments for the SBOE version, probably won't be coming until the end of the year, January. I mean, so realistically, we're not going to have it in this admission cycle.
Exactly.
With comment, not a question for right now.
Again, the admission policies are the institutions this has been a discussion of how to collect that information so that to make it easier on students, to inform students if they are under the foundation or minimum plan, would they even qualify under the other admission policy at your institution. So this is something that we're probably going to have an advisory committee or a subcommittee group or something so that we can come up with suggestions on how to put something together for students for informational purposes.
Well, the questions are out there. I just got an email this morning. So how to respond is a challenge at the moment.
Did you say a subcommittee will be forming?
More than likely. That's
from
going to be
y'all?
one of, no, the Apply Texas.
Okay, thank you.
That's going to be one of the recommendations.
I mean, to second the notion of an advisory committee, I think we head into junior year recruitment pretty quick in the cycle. So, I mean, come after Christmas, we'll be, if not before, working with juniors. And I think we all have recognized we're going to have to do some kind of manual labor to work with the current seniors and figure out how to fit them into the admissions process. But I agree that it's really critical that we get in front of the junior population with some consistent messaging, because if we're starting to see a few seniors move to foundation, we're certainly going to see more a year from now, and we need to be ready for them come spring.
Any other questions on this item? The other agenda item is the House Bill 2099 regarding the nursing application. Again, I provided that the sections within the bill, there's other sections in the bill, but I provided the sections that dealt with this issue. According to the bill, the coordinating board is mandated to look at this issue. We have 1 year to determine whether it's cost effective to create an application like this. The coordinating board, the board actually approved an agenda item to support this effort by providing funding to get stakeholders, which are going to be the nursing faculty and chairs of each institution, to come in and create or have the conversation about whether this is something that we want to move forward, whether it's going to be cost effective, and just discussing the whole process of how a student goes through that process internally within the institution. We've heard a couple of institutions, they do it different than other. So again, this is just to start the conversation, to start the discussion, the dialogue, and come up with an answer. The bill does have that we have to determine whether it's cost effective within a year. There's not an implementation date. So that kind of gives it, that gives us flexibility on implementation. I know that for the IT team to create something like this, if we decide in May, if we decide that this is something that is cost effective, that's not going to give us enough time to do those, the IT, the coding, and everything else. So they did give us a little bit of flexibility on implementation. So again, the recommendation on this one is going to be to create a subcommittee so that we can start discussing this issue.
Is the committee looking at both whether or not it's a standalone form, a standalone application, or a supplement application to the Common App, to the Apply Texas?
I think it's for cost effectiveness. It's going to be a supplement. It's going to be like an additional application within the Common application, within Apply Texas system. Yes. And again, this might create a little bit of have have student accounts for longer than a year, so that if a student goes in and creates an application for freshman admissions, they come back after the first semester to apply to an institution for the nursing program, all their information should be in the system already. So a lot of that information should be able to fill out this new application. So for efficiency purposes, we need to have a discussion on the cost, how much is it going to cost to leave student accounts for one more year instead of deleting the accounts. What's the current term? Is it after 1 year the accounts are
You said supplemental app. Does that mean a separate app type? Like we have the, okay, I'll make sure I got my terminology straight.
And again, this is mandated, so it's not something that we just have to figure out whether it's cost effective.
One of the first questions that might help the group determine this, and I think you alluded to it, is to try to get an understanding of the nursing admission practices across institutions, because even right here, I think there's some very different things, that happen with transfer students and how and where they fit.
Yeah. I think the main goal for this one is to actually have data on this population of students. Right now, there's a shortage in nursing, but from what we heard from a study is that there's vacant seats or vacant spots available at institutions. But whenever we go and visit, we get a different story. So it just depends of who you talk to, and there's really not any type of statewide data on this population. So I think that was more than likely the main purpose for this idea.
There are nursing shortages in parts of the country, not all parts of our state. And I think that needs to be understood across our state. Is we're not just talking about one area. When you talk about a state, there are certain geographic areas that are not in a shortage of nursing. To clarify, and just forgive my ignorance of the rules and how we state things, but it says undergraduate nursing education program. Are we talking about LVN, RN, BSN? Which levels are we talking about? All these? Because I think that's going to hit into where the differences that you guys have are the same differences that we have. Mm-hmm. And are we going to include CNAs in that as well?
Mm-hmm. I think that's an item for discussion of what this group will be comfortable with. And again, it just depends on. The application itself should be standard for all the programs. Now, the admission requirements or the evaluation of the admission might be different from a program to program, and even within the same institution. So those are two different. Yeah.
Right. An application has nothing to do.
Exactly. So we're just looking at
Right.
We're just looking at creating a standard application, so it could cover all of them, depending on how we set it up.
And is there a definition of what cost effective is?
No. I think this is whenever we created the the application for dual credit, it doesn't increase it did not increase the cost for Applied Texas, and we just had to make priorities on what other projects we needed to do at that year. But that year we didn't have that many other priorities, so I think we implemented all the recommendations that year without adding any additional costs to the application itself. And I'm actually happy to report that we actually have a $100,000 credit from the previous cycle to this cycle. So that credit is going to be applied to next year's Apply Texas fees, annual fees. So we're actually looking at costs very closely and penny pinching UT. Any other questions on this mandate?
So I'm presuming that we're looking at just another application like freshman transfer, transient nursing.
Exactly.
And then perhaps making that inclusive of all the different types of nursing protocols and programs.
Exactly. So technically, if a student goes and transfers, they can actually do a transfer application and a nursing application if they're ready to apply for the nursing program at that time. So it will be something where we have to. Well, this population already knows that they have to apply to the program. So I don't think there's going to be any additional educating or doing to that population. Okay. Again, I'm also available offline. So if you have other questions, yes, ma'am. Okay, could you be in the microphone? I don't want to, I'm not going to make you repeat everything, but yes, that has been an issue or a concern from other members of the committee and former members too. Again, this is a mandate. We're not looking at other programs. We don't even know how the process is going to work. We do have an idea of how the process should work, but again, the subcommittee will discuss those type of details of what the role of the admission office will be. It might be that the admission office will just be in between person to transfer data to the program, and you're not looking at individual applications and processing the applications. So again, we do know of that concern, or we are aware of that concern, and we're mindful of that concern whenever we're talking about the process. Well, it's going to be the Apply Texas Committee members, whoever wants to be part of this, and we're going to be giving the funding to probably the nursing chairs, the department chairs.
To come out for a discovery meeting.
Yes.
To talk about the process of combining or making common an application.
I think, reading the legislation, the committee that's looking at this will want to be kind of mindful to stay consistent with what it's asking and see if the board determines that adoption of the form be cost effective for nursing schools or for use by persons seeking admission, to get to Trey's point about what is cost effective, not necessarily only what it will cost the Apply Texas team to create the form, but whether or not it's good practice for the various policies around the state and the various types of students that we're talking about and practices in admission offices. So that's twofold, and it would seem we need to have the right mix of representation of nursing faculty, admission staff that work with those programs in whichever way they do, and the Applied Texas folks, so we can make sure we're able to look at all three of those.
Yeah, definitely. We're not going to just look at costs as how much does it cost to create the application, but the other, yeah, the other costs, the other.
The cost of institutions for implementation.
Yes, exactly. And then again, we do have the flexibility in implementation. So if we decide that this is going to cost too much because of the implementation timeline, those are some of the other issues that we're going to be discussing within this group.
Hassle.
Other questions, comments on the legislative update from the coordinating board? All right, sir.
Okay. Or any other bills that you are interested in or have questions?
There's a free call for all bills that you're interested in right there.
Now that I have Stacy here. Okay. The next one is the FAFSA data. This has been again, this was or last year was the first year that FAFSA data was available within the Applied Texas Counselor Suite. We actually received a lot of good feedback about the data. The new data is going to be released. So currently, if counselors go in there, log in, they can still have still have access to last year's seniors. This year's seniors, the data is going to be available in the middle of January. That's going to be our internal timeline to work with the Department of Ed, getting the new data definitions and making sure that we have the data ready to go and go live sometime in January. Again, we've had good feedback. We will continue doing it.
I know in Brownsville Independent School, I'm Pilar Janis, and I am the lead higher ed counselor, K through 12 for Brownsville Independent School District. I just wanted to tell you that we were able to use it in our high school. 100% of our students, we're the largest school district in South Texas, and we had 100% of our students use the Applied Texas to apply. And our FAFSA, utilizing the Counselor Suite, we were at 75 to 80% district-wide in all of the high schools. So we really were able to use the data that the coordinating board provided. It was awesome.
Thank you, Pilar.
Any other questions on the FAFSA? Okay. The next is web reports. This is something that we've discussed about creating something online so that institutions or high schools have access to their data and other people's data. So this is something that the coordinating board paid outside the Applied Texas funds. And Tim created this application, and we're going to do a little demo on the reports.
So Jose's going to do his dual role as technical help here. So, and I think David was introduced before, but David Muck back here, Ray, is the head of the technical team. So I get credit for all this, but I didn't really do any of it. So this is, as Jose said, this is this is a public site. It will be a public site, and right now it's kind of in beta, which is kind of our version of we think it's pretty good, but if it crashes, don't blame us, just tell us and we'll fix it. So this is, as you'll see, there's quite a bit there's going to be quite a bit of information here. This will be bringing out of beta pretty quickly. It seemed we're pretty happy with it, but there's room for, once we get a bunch of users in there and people taking a look at all this data, then we'll certainly open to feedback as to what would be more helpful or what isn't helpful along the way. So if you take a look just at the first page, at the top there, go back up to the top if you would, just so we see some of the that one we're on is the statewide one, but there are other, you'll be able to drill down to higher ed region, looking at different colleges, TEA region, school district, and you can just pick fall 2013 and hit submit, and so you can look at the different higher ed regions, and this is just if you just kind of roll over, you can see what the different ones are, and scroll down some, and you can click on the different higher ed region, any of the higher ed regions. It comes up with 10, but it'll give you applications and applicants, and this also. Obviously, depending on where you are, this will change quickly. If you're looking at past, if you're looking at the past, it's pretty set. But if you're looking at fall 2014, the apps might change as you're on this page by several. Breakdown by college. And what we'd like to do is just have people go into the site and bang around a little bit, and then certainly give us some feedback on what's useful. We do stay here for a second. If you look at go back up a little bit and just down a little bit, where it says saved applications at the bottom, scroll down just a little there. One of the things we're doing, and this was part of our discussion, is there are saved applications in here and submitted applications. We made what we thought was the right decision, but we don't want to mislead people that because so many applications are submitted late, or not late, but at the last minute. So, for example, at UT Austin, we'll have and A&M also this year, we have the same deadline, and so there'll be a lot of, if you go in, 2 weeks, if you go in the middle of November and all we had was submitted apps, it might not look like there were that many. But if you wait 2 weeks, there's going to be a lot. So we decided at this point we thought people would be interested in knowing, even though not all of those saved apps will be submitted. We find in looking at some of the data that for the junior colleges, for the 2-year schools, we get a higher percentage of people who start apps and actually finish them. I won't go into why that could be, but with the 4-year schools, we often get maybe 20% of the apps that get started at any given point, at least, aren't submitted and probably are not eventually not submitted at all. So here's for Region 7. We've got 149,000 saved and submitted apps, and then you can break it. I think if you roll over the red one, you can see the numbers broken out. So it's a pretty handy site. It's got there's a little question mark down here on the right. If you just roll over that, it'll give you a little information. We're also putting together an FAQ, but we've started one, but we're kind of going to wait and see if people have suggestions for help as they get into the site, because we're not sure. It's a public site, and it's kind of the first time we've done something like this, so we're not sure exactly who's going to be in there and what they're going to be looking for. But you can see you can drill down to a given college, and then if you click on Texas A&M, and it should bring up some more details. You've got saved apps and submitted apps and total apps, and it seems to be taking a little while, doesn't it? Y'all server's a little slow this morning, Cheryl? No, that's our server. And you can break it out by high school. Scroll all the way to the top, and you can see all the different ones. And also you can sort, if you click on any one of those, where it says saved application, click on that, and again, it'll sort by low to high or high to low, by how many submitted. So right now the Woodlands has 390 total applications, either saved or submitted to A&M for I forget whatever semester this was, and then that's the highest right now. Okay, and then you can look at any particular school. And this is all going to be public. Yes, yes, it is live. Yeah, we just got it live. It's still, I think there's a warning up there that says it's beta for now. We'll take that down after we bang around and get some other people to bang around on it. But we figure it's going to be I think it's going to be some really interesting information for the high schools and for people in the different regions at TEA and for colleges to see where your people are coming from. We also can, if you go, and I'm sorry. But you can, all of these drill down. You can also download a report from any page, from many of the pages that you're on. And if you'll go back, scroll back up to the top, and let's go back to statewide again. And one of the things I'm being asked to do as a report from the technical team is a system usage report, and you can kind of see from this that these are the statewide application counts for the different for several different semesters, and so you can see, for fall 2012 total submitted and total saved. And then the total number of 768,000 is the two of those together, and that should be a stable number. Also for fall 2013, and you can see that on average an applicant has 2 apps. You can see also in fall 2014. Which is obviously still open. If we were to reload this, it would probably go up as we're standing here looking at it. But you notice there's not that much difference, and that was one of the things that looked at the technical team. It's like you learn so much by looking at these kinds of data, just because it makes you ask questions and helps you look at it anew. We noticed, for example, that the difference between total applicants and the saved and submitted for fall 2014 isn't that great. Why is it not that great? Well, it turns out a lot of these people are people who are applying. First of all, we don't have a lot of the 2-year schools yet. If we're looking at that number and that time frame. Also, it seems like a lot of the people, because of the relatively early deadline days for A&M and UT, that a lot of these people will go in and they'll make those applications, and then they'll come back later. And because of the way the application is, they can just copy it to another 2 or 3 places. So that number of the total apps submitted will go up faster than the number of applicants as we go through the year. So it's interesting just looking at the data. And if you scroll down a little bit, you can choose a year and a semester. It defaults to fall 2014, and we'll obviously we'll keep that moving because that's the one that's open for some of the schools. You can choose any one of those years, and then choose fall 2013 right below that. Right below that on the left, where it says, you have to, once you choose a year, you kind of have to choose which one do you want, and these should be stable. And so you can just kind of look at these numbers. Overall, I can look at this and tell you, as sometimes is asked for the first committee meeting of the year, a little bit of a system usage report. So we have total apps for 2013, looking at fall, spring, summer, right at about 1 million. 860 of those were submitted. 860,000 of those million were submitted. We have about a little over 500,000 different applicants for the year, and these numbers have been going up through the years. I think we're adding schools, right? We've added several private schools over the last year. I know Jose's been helping with that, and we think we have more than half of the private institutions in the state now on Apply Texas. And of course, one thing to remember is these are Apply Texas numbers. Some schools might still take other applications. They would not be; those numbers would not be in here. This is just from our database for Apply Texas applications. We have about an even number of 2-year schools and 4-year schools for the whole year. There's many more 4-year schools apps for fall, but once you add in spring and summer, we get a lot more for the 2-year schools. And so if we look overall at the 2013 spring, summer, fall, just as a year, a calendar year, it's pretty evenly divided among the 2 years and the 4-year schools. And as far as cost goes, we figure a budget of around $600,000 a year, which y'all share, based on attendance. Right? It's based on attendance. Comes to between 50 and 75 cents per application, which is pretty good when you compare it to, say, the Common App, which is $4, which costs the institutions $4 per app. And so we depend at 50, and I say 50 to 75. That could be a big number difference, but that just has to do with whether we include saved apps or whether we're just looking at submitted apps. And that's been fairly steady through time because obviously our costs have gone up. Our costs go up every year, but so far our numbers have gone up every year too. I think our growth which has been substantial over the last 5 years or so, maybe more than double. But I think that's not going to continue going forward. But as we add new schools and it's just the initiatives to get more people to apply and also just the general kind of increase in population of the state, I think we'll continue to increase numbers as we go along. So this site we'd like to have people go to. If you look at the URL there, it's a little more complicated than it needs to be. If you just do applytexas.org/reports, all in lowercase, it'll take you to this page automatically. So you can just remember that. You can get to it through the admin site. We had put it there as a way of sharing it with ourselves and sharing it with some admin people. But ultimately, it'll be the public site will be the site that we'll want everyone to go to. So it'll be just www.applytexas.org/reports. That's correct, David, isn't it? And then that will get you to this page, and then you can go from there. And that's it's not at this point linked anywhere. You just have to know the URL, and that'll be a conversation, between Jose and us as to where we want to put links to this site. So it's right now it's one of the internet's best kept secrets, but we would like y'all to go out and take a look at it and give us some feedback and see how it works for you. I think there's a lot of really rich information in there that I think we can't even at this point even imagine how all of it's going to be used. And it does have a little auto refresh for 30, 60, or 120 seconds if you want to act like you're at ESPN.com or something. And it is kind of fun. We turn it on every once in a while, and just while we're looking at it, the number of applicants will go up every 30 seconds. So it's a reminder of how often Apply Texas is used and submitted as well as saved. So, do you have any questions?
That's one of the items that I was going to mention. One of the requirements was to use live data. We didn't want to have a day-old data or anything like that. So the site is actually using live data within 30 minutes or 30 seconds, I guess.
Right.
So it's not really live.
Yeah.
But again, the idea was just to provide, not just to provide just the website, just to have a website, but to provide information for counselors and institutions to look at the data, look at the trends, and analyze the data to revise or look at their recruitment, or whenever high schools are looking at college fairs, to look at the data and look at the past data to figure out what institutions or what institution students are submitting applications to. And it's very user-friendly. an institution can actually go in and look at what other institutions or who their top high schools, what other institutions are getting applicants from that same high school. So it's more just than for FYI, it's for data analysis.
And if we would like to invite people, you all especially, to go in there, as we just released this, and give us some feedback. And we can't promise that we'll do everything you ask us to do, but if I guess maybe an email to y'all have access, I guess, to the admin. The admin, I think it will then go to Sarah, and after she's finished yelling at me for giving this out, it'll be a good way for us, for the team, to have feedback about, would you consider this, or I found this hard to work with, because y'all can be partner with us a little bit in its beta state, and tell us if we can make improvements to it. We definitely would like to do that. So we'll definitely consider anything that you request.
Will you share with that team how wonderful they are, receptive, and all of them, David et al. They're just wonderful.
Thank you. It's great working with them.
Tim, are you pretty comfortable that as we hit the major deadlines, that the refresh capability to be able to keep up? There's nothing more fun than November 30th.
I'm real comfortable sitting here right now in early November. It's a consideration. We put the refresh thing on. It was a request, and I can see how it could be useful. Someone's making a presentation, and they want it to be they want it to be refreshed. We do have to consider, if everybody, we got thousands of people doing auto refresh every 30 seconds, and it's hitting our database. We have to take that into consideration. I don't think that just the number of apps that are going to be submitted between now and December 1st, because that's obviously a big time for us, but I don't think that's going to affect the response time of this page. Would you say, David? I think that's right, because we're just basically kind of keeping counts. It's not like. We'll take a look. Yeah, we might want to look at that. Yeah, but we're not actually kind of crawling through every app. Every time somebody hits enter on this, we're kind of taking data from it and putting it somewhere else, and then we mine that data for this page. Cheryl?
I hate to put you on the spot, but since we talked about load right then, as it gets close to November 30th, December 1st. We've had problems in the past when our deadline has come up with such big loads. We don't get the transmissions and things. With the switch to NSC, has that been addressed? Or can it be in the next 3 weeks?
We have talked to them about our peak times, and we know that now A&M and UT Austin will have the same final deadline. And conveniently enough, it's on a weekend. But so we will just have to go through that the best we can. But we've certainly, I think on our end, been diligent in letting them know that there is this peak time coming. As far as I think that they're. One of the, and I don't know whether I took the opportunity to say this, but their infrastructure is going to be very robust, and I think this is what they do, and I think that their infrastructure is, if anything, going to be more robust and easier to keep robust going forward than when it was totally under the UT Austin registrar's office, and this will be our first test. So. Do I need to ask for you to contact me if you have any problems at A&M? Yeah, maybe. But seriously, we're doing everything we can to see that, and we will be watching it closely.
I think this is a fantastic piece that will be included on the Apply Texas website. I'm glad that it's going to be a public piece, and it's going to be something I know that I can use in conversations internally and externally for my institution. Other questions for Tim or his team regarding the web report for the Apply Texas application? All right. Before we go to our next agenda item, I think we'll break a little bit early and take a quick break and let you guys get refreshment and stretch your legs. Warm up for Cheryl, and then we'll continue here momentarily with a report from the technical team. So we will break at this time. Thank you. And we will continue with our agenda. The next item on the agenda is the report from the technical team, and Dr. Brace will be providing us an update. Tim?
Thank you. So we talked a little bit before the break about the system usage. Just to quickly reiterate, we had about for fiscal year or calendar year 2013, fall, spring, summer and spring and fall, we had about 1 million total apps, 860,000 submitted, and about 550,000 applicants. So we get, on average, a couple of apps per applicant. We figure that it's cost between 50 to 75 cents per app based on the number of apps and the budget for the Apply Texas team, and that's been fairly steady. Our costs go up, but also the number of applicants and applications has been going up as well. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, I'll go on to the next several items. The next 3 items are really questions on the part of the technical team in response to our own wondering about some improvements, and also in response to questions that we get and communications we get from users and from some of our institutions. So, for example, this last year we started implementing standardization of addresses, and we haven't had a negative response to that. It seems like that generally has gone well. That's an automatic thing that happens behind the scenes as the student fills out the app. They have the capability of overriding it if they want to, but they have to take the action to do that. One of the things that was kind of a side issue with that was that suddenly everybody started getting zip +4 in their apps, and in the past, when people had to fill in the zip, most of the time they didn't fill in the +4. So a question that the technical team has is should there be the standard from the post office is that there is a dash between the 5 and the 4 in the zip. Now we don't have that now. I think at UT Austin we just put it in there and for display purposes, and we added ourselves. But one question, this is really reflecting a question that was asked of us by some of the institutions that were kind of surprised all of a sudden they were getting these long zips, and we don't split those out. And so one question that for deliberation for you, considering your systems of how you consume this data, is do you want us to do that? I looked it up, and it is in fact the way that the post office deals with it is that they put that dash in there and they consider that kind of the standard way of dealing with it, and we can do that. It's not a big change for us, but it might be a big change for some of you to then go to your consuming systems, which may or may not already be adding that, and have them change it. So that's something for you all to consider. And I don't know whether, Jose, whether you want to take any time for them for any, or Ethan, whether you want to take any time to deliberate that now, or whether you just, we could just put it in people's ears and ask for feedback.
That's a great question. I think that we will need to check with our home institutions and make sure that the information received and the personnel and administration that's taking that information, which way is the preferred way. I appreciate both of those delivery options, what we're currently doing, but also what is the post office standard. The trick will be more often than not necessarily what we have administratively at our home institutions, but through the partners that we employ, these third parties that have these student information systems, if they have any problems or challenges. And so we'll take it. It's a two-step conversation. So. Okay, and David, I'm right that this is relatively trivial on our end. We can easily do nothing, I think, if that's the choice, and adding it would not be take a lot of time on our end too. We just would like some guidance if you want us to make that change. The second thing on there, or the third thing under the report from technical team, the test score IDs. There was a request made from one of the graduate schools that participates in Apply Texas, that if we were able to, could we ask the student to self-report IDs from test scores, say the GRE, GMAT, these kinds of things. Now, not all test scores have IDs, and I don't think that the undergraduate ones do. And IDs, app IDs can sometimes be confusing. There might be more than one on there. So this was brought up to me, and I was asked to consider it, and also to bring it forward to the group as to whether, in terms of matching, once you get, we at UT Austin, we're always struggling to match, scores, test scores come in and transcripts come in and apps come in, and there's a lot of effort spent putting all that together, and I'm sure you all do a lot of that too. And would it be helpful? It wouldn't be, I don't think, a huge take a lot of time on our side and for the technical team to just basically add a new field on whatever apps you want to that would say, if you're reporting a test score, which is all self-reported anyway, if you have an ID for that test score, put it in here, and then we can just add that to the delivery of information to the institution, and then you can do with it whatever you want. If that's helpful, we don't want to spend the time on it if it's not helpful. But if it is helpful, I think that that's also something that it's more less trivial than a dash in the zip code, but it's something that's doable on our end without a tremendous amount of effort. Am I right on that, David? Yeah. So I don't know if you want to think about that, and again go back and talk to your people and see if that's the kind of thing that would be useful. I get the sense that it's maybe more useful on the graduate school side.
I agree that that's probably the case, that it's more an issue on the grad school side, and then I would ask whether or not even there the student would have that information at hand, or are we introducing more opportunity for error? If they put it in correctly, then we're mismatching because of something they did. So I probably want to check in with the grad school.
Okay, I think that's a really good concern. It's they'd have to have it in hand. Could they find it? Would it be the right one? Might there be more than one number? Would they type it in correctly? How much could you really rely on? This is all self-reported information. It might be more useful than not, at least some of the time, that might make it worth reporting and adding to our delivery, but it might not be. So that'd be something, again, we would just take direction from the committee.
And that very well could be a dynamic question for the graduate school in question.
That's true too. You could do it if you wanted to. That's true. And finally, the last item here is a question really for the members of the committee and for the community of our two-year schools, is whether the adoption or the adaptation of our current scholarship app would be useful for the two-year schools. We've gotten some communication from a small number of two-year schools that have asked us specifically whether that scholarship app, which is a separate application, but it's also sent through the same way to the institutions, and it was really designed for the four-year schools. And so we don't have. Not all the four-year schools use it, and we're just but we're asking kind of the community, is it worth our time and the time of input from the two-year schools? Are there enough two-year schools that would use the scholarship app if we were able to come up with a version of it or adapt it in such a way that it would be usable by two-year schools? And this would be a fairly decent-sized project, so we don't want to embark on it if most two-year schools really would have no interest.
Any comment or question?
I want to make a comment to this, because whenever I was on the Applied Texas Committee before, this was something that was brought up by our institution. And we've also revisited it recently with our foundation office to determine if it would be beneficial for us to use the scholarship application. And the problem that we find is that if the student has to complete the whole application, then it really, because our scholarship office requires the students to apply every semester. You know, I know each institution is different, so that a few years ago we thought that this would perhaps maybe be a mechanism to use. So I think if students weren't required to fill out the entire application, perhaps maybe using their profile to submit a scholarship application and not the whole entire admission application, we would probably revisit that. But
okay.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Let me ask a question. Are you wanting clarification on that? Because I'll be real honest, that's not a conversation that's ever come up at our institution. But if you're needing feedback on that, then maybe that's where we need to go first before we.
Yeah, I think it would be nice on our purposes. It's just again, it's been brought up a couple of times, and people. I think, David, do we have somebody looking at it right now that's using it? I think what school is that? Do you remember? I don't remember which school. Yeah, there's one two-year school that is actually kind of testing its ability to use it in its current form, and so and the scholarship app, it exists. It's not used maybe as much as it could be, and we're on the Applied Texas team. We're kind of asking, could this tool be more useful, across the board by more institutions, or is it kind of going to be or does it just need to continue to be what it is, which is just an app that's only used by a few institutions because it fits their needs? Could we modify it in such a way that it would be worth our time and would be useful to the community? And we're not sure the answer to that, so that's kind of why I'm bringing it up.
So currently the application is only used for entering students, and then after that they have to go through the whole institutional process. Right.
It's just part of the application, part of the initial application for Applied Texas. Yeah, we don't have right now a mechanism to go back and resubmit that as a separate
standalone
app. As a standalone app.
Scholarship app.
Right. Yeah.
Would that be helpful for four-year institutions? To have a standalone scholarship application for students that are already enrolled at that institution to come back and submit a scholarship application? Because right now it's not being used that way.
When I asked my financial aid department why they don't use it, that was the reason they gave me why they don't use it, because they want to have one app for everybody. So
it's not designed that way.
Would
So maybe
it be roughly the same each time, or is there something significantly different about the initial scholarship application? I'm just thinking technically in terms of it's one thing to say, well, let's see what we can look at and let them come back and just resubmit that scholarship app by itself. It's another thing if it's going to be significantly different when it's your second time or third time or fourth time to apply for to a continuation of the same application.
I'm thinking the information is going to be the same. Of course, they look at it differently.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as you get more into your degree, your awards
GPA.
change, but I think the information is the same that they ask. But
I think if we can look at creating a standalone scholarship application, I think that's going to serve more than just the two-year institutions, because that was one of the concerns that we've heard from institutions is that right now it's only serving first-year students, and then after that they have to go through their own institutional process.
Right.
So once you have them trained one way, bring them back. So yeah, that's
something we can look at. I mean, it's certainly, in one sense, a change in what Apply Texas does, because it's now not just part of the application. Now it's a reapplication through a student's career at an institution. We'd have to take a look at how we could do that and whether that's worth doing. And whether we should be doing that, since we're mostly an application, mostly building an application and not a continuing relationship for aid. But we can certainly take a look at what it would take and come back and report that.
I think just
okay.
review.
Can I add a comment? What you might consider as you're researching and checking into that is checking into the TASPA application for the undocumented students, because there isn't an automated way for them to apply. So perhaps partnering with TG and undocumented students to apply. But again, it is outside of the scope of applying for admission.
We're actually looking at a project at basically doing that. Right now, the FAFSA information only gives you federal aid, or if they apply to FAFSA. So one of the things that I hear from counselors is they want the whole financial aid picture. That means FAFSA information. So we're looking at, I submitted a request to Tim to look at that, to see the feasibility of creating a system like that and how much it would cost. So we are looking at that. Hopefully trying to implement it, not this cycle, but next cycle. So for high school juniors, to do it that way. But we haven't worked out all the details, but we're looking at that.
And it's not connected to the application in that sense. It will be the same team doing it, but it'd be a separate process.
And a separate project.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that if we're going to go down the scholarship Common App road, that we maintain the same flexibility that we have with the Common App for admission, such as the dynamic questions, so that when an institution has a new scholarship that comes about, whether or not it was available in the fall and now we have a new one for the spring, that we have the ability to adjust that application as necessary so that it can be a very useful tool, because it could very well be one of the best things that we use.
One of the things that we're going to be looking at using the same type of technologies and the same type of format and the same setup. So it would carry those qualities.
I have a comment. As I sit with the students filling out the application and seeing all the information that they do in the scholarship app, and having sat on several as a judge in national scholarships, looking, does it give they need to redesign one that would be separate. I don't feel it gives a whole lot of information, perhaps maybe to who's ever going to review it. Maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. But the information that is given is not like, how do I say, pretty specific or a lot to give kind of sort of other dimensions of the student. So I don't know. Perhaps maybe a separate scholarship app that would include some other informations that could help whoever's reviewing the scholarship committee to kind of sort of get a feel more about the student. And that it would encompass a lot of universities, more maybe general questions.
Tim, could you provide a background of how the application was created? If you,
David, can you help me out? David's been on the team longer than I am. Yeah, really.
I would have.
It's been a while. Cheryl might even remember.
I would think that the financial aid and scholarship people were involved in the process initially.
Yeah, initially.
I think the question is, I mean, at this point, I haven't heard from 4 years that it's not meeting our needs of what we need to make our processes. So in some ways where I don't know that we disagree that we wish some of our processes could expand to that level, I'm not sure institutionally either we have enough scholarships to warrant that in depth, or the way in which we award them or that the donors ask us to award them facilitates that. Except for maybe the Terrys.
They need more personnel, to review that. That would.
And I think, maybe, and this is just a suggestion, that maybe a subcommittee of this group or something could just look at the scholarship app. It sounds like it's been around for a while. I don't remember. I wasn't involved when it first started. So what questions was it answering? But it seems to be it's used by a minority of institutions, and they're even the 4 years, and it's not used by the 2 years. And what is its role within the kind of Applied Texas suite of services, and what should it be? Should there be some changes made? Is it as good as it should be because it's really kind of peripheral to the actual application? And should we not be taking on something that would be much larger, or is it, if we just did a few things to it here and there, would it be much more useful? And that's kind of what the team wants to know is kind of how could we improve it, and what's its role going forward? And maybe a small group or some kind of working group or something could look at that for this committee.
I think we initially started out with the premise that so much of what's on the admissions application is asked again on the scholarship app. So, by this point, do you not know my name and address? Do you need my phone number again? And so I think it started from that premise that so much of it was an overlap, that if we could facilitate, that they've already given us all that information, now just answer this small part, which sometimes is not small, I realize that, but that would facilitate them applying for scholarships.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the reason for its existence, is to eliminate some of that duplication. But there seem to be some limitations in what it does, so that it's not used as broadly as maybe it could be. And we're just kind of asking the question: is that something we need to live with, or is there a way to make it more broadly usable?
That might be a good TACRO. I got T-Rex on the mind. TACRO question that we could even get some feedback by next week. When we all meet, that's worth a question out to the group.
That session where you can just talk about any issues?
Yeah, we have a couple of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring that up. I asked my group too, so
okay.
I'll see.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the application will be more useful if it's a standalone for returning students.
All right, thank you for that discussion. That really leads us into our next topic and our next agenda item, which will be the subcommittee discussion and assignments. And so following this agenda item, we will first discuss, then assign subcommittee membership. And so that's voluntary, and I would appreciate your volunteering to participate in these subcommittee groups for these items that we've talked about today. And we'll be taking forward over the course of this term of the advisory committee. So chronologically from our conversations today, we started with a recommendation for a subcommittee that arose from our discussion on House Bill 5, and specifically talking about what was the protocol for diploma verification, what was perhaps the unified strategy of public institutions towards admissions of students who are switching from under the current structure, who are electing into the new foundation program for high school diploma. Recipients of the new foundation program for high school diplomas, and how we would like to approach that. Perhaps it's to our advantage to have a conversation about what will be the stopgap in between the determination by the State Board of Education on the curriculum that will make up or compose that high school foundation diploma. And if we perhaps do that as a committee, we can make recommendations forward for a unified approach in the interim from which public institutions can use as we go forward. And so that's kind of the charge of this first committee, to talk about, subcommittee, thank you, Cheryl, about how we want to approach this as institutions of higher education. And this may be a conversation that needs to go a little further than just what we're doing, but perhaps we're a great conversation point to start with to take back to the Higher Education Coordinating Board. So I would like to, I think there may be some members who would like to volunteer to be a part of this committee. And I'm going to ask that you let me know.
Texas A&M.
So that I can write it down.
Texas State.
UT Austin.
Stephen F. Austin.
Angelo State.
All right, very good. That's a good group to start with.
Again, just a reminder, the subcommittee membership, they don't have to include complete membership of the advisory of the Applied Texas Advisory Committee. So if other institutions out there would like to join this subcommittee, they may. We just need a chair.
We've got an existing working group that we can pull together and
Okay.
just add the few people that have added.
I think that's fantastic. We'll determine chairs of subcommittees. We'll determine their chair. And that is an important piece because the chair will provide a written report to the Applied Texas Committee according to our new committee membership or charges.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm new to this. I just wanted to know, as a subcommittee, when do y'all meet? Do y'all meet at the same time that we meet? What is the?
That's a great question. It's very ad hoc in terms of how it's coordinated. So one of the things that we try to do are phone calls, conference calling, to have interim meetings, and then we will host meetings in and around Applied Texas meetings as well, so that there's some FaceTime as a part of that process as well. But between Applied Texas meetings, it's usually either handled online or on conference calling. Okay, so yes, I wanted just to talk briefly, and I got ahead of myself to talk about a little bit about the charge of the committee, subcommittees. Membership is not restricted to the Applied Texas Committee. And secondly, then the chair of the subcommittee will provide a written report to the Applied Texas Committee, which we then move forward to the coordinating board, to be redundant, to the board of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and report to them. And so that's under our new guidelines as a charged advisory committee of how our operations are to work. Excellent. Excellent questions. I apologize for the logistics delay there that I didn't tell you up front. I hope that hasn't swayed any membership. Okay, good. All right, the second item that we talked about this morning, which I think we should take forward, is a conversation about the common nursing application for the state. That is an interesting component because that will also include this stakeholders meeting, which Jose was referring to earlier, about constituent nursing programs across the state having the opportunity to come in and talk about their process, their protocol, their wants, their desires, and their dreams for a common application in nursing. So this subcommittee then will be responsible for taking that information and helping to develop that with Tim and his crew about how we can see the feasibility, efficacy of the application. Is it cost effective to implement, and will it meet the needs of these constituents? So that's the charge of the second subcommittee. And so I'd like to entertain any volunteers for this subcommittee.
Texas A&M.
Texarkana College.
Alamo Colleges.
Glenn College.
Texas State.
Austin Community College.
Texas Women's University.
UT Austin.
UT El Paso.
I'm having a hard time keeping up. Let's go through that one more time. Yeah. Texas A&M, Alamo College, Texarkana College. That's as far as I got.
Texas.
Glenn. TWU.
Texas. Austin.
Tyler Junior College.
Texas State.
Giplin.
Yes.
Austin
And
Community College.
TC. Excellent. That's fantastic. I'm excited about everybody's interest in that subcommittee.
Now, on this subcommittee, again, because of the complexity and because of the additional funding that we're going to fund these people to come in, we haven't worked out all the details of when and how, but we will get all that information to everybody in the subcommittee so that, and nothing will be final, everything will be CB recommendations on timelines for you to consider. So this one is going to be moving a little fast because of the nature of it.
The conversation we just had about scholarship application sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for that conversation. We traditionally host a subcommittee for both the scholarship application and the graduate school application, and I'd like to continue that this year to look at any revisions to those applications. This scholarship application conversation is a little broader with a conversation about whether or not we want to look at it as a reoccurring application process and or whether or not two-year institutions would like to have an adoption of the usage of that scholarship application, and then, of course, talk about any kind of inclusion of specific needs in the application. So let's start first with the scholarship application. I'm looking for volunteers to serve on this subcommittee to discuss the scholarship application and whether or not we need to change or develop that further.
Texas A&M.
Texarkana College.
North Central Texas College.
BISD.
Texas State.
Laredo Community College.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, volunteers to participate in the graduate school application. We'd like to look at the graduate school application, and this subcommittee is going to be important in the sense that we need to cultivate any ideas or conversations with our graduate school constituencies.
Texas A&M.
UT Austin.
Any other members interested in serving on that committee?
Can you add Tarrant County College to the scholarship application, please?
You bet.
Thanks.
Thank you, David.
I'll get back to you on the grad one. Let me see if we've had some turnover. Let me see if I can find you a rep.
No problem. And remember, subcommittees can include members not on the advisory committee, so you are welcome to volunteer and then also include your graduate school.
Done. A rep to be named later.
Yes.
Stephen F. Austin.
Thank you, sir. Cheryl asked a good question. Trey and I, as chair and co-chair, are going to try to participate in all of these committees. So, surprise. And we'll try to make sure that we're represented between either or both of us on these committees as well. And those conversations, those phone calls, and will also be available for the meetings when we have an opportunities to get together. That's just what chairs do. The last subcommittee, and this one is actually the easiest, I think, of the bunch after looking at those charges, is I think it's an important service of this advisory committee to provide an annual meeting opportunity for all of the constituent participants in the Apply Texas application who may or may not have membership on this advisory committee to have an opportunity to meet on an annual basis to review both the revisions to the application prior to its release and to have an opportunity to communicate with this committee and express their congratulations and support, adulations, or criticisms as they see fit. And so we have historically held an annual meeting in the summer here in Austin at the J.J. Pickle Center. And we can continue to do it just the way it has been done in the past, or this group can choose to do something differently. But I think it is an important outreach and service that we provide to our constituency. And so I'd like to host a subcommittee to help facilitate the planning and organization of that meeting agenda and process. Don't everybody volunteer at once.
Texas A&M would be interested in that.
Thank you.
Alamo Colleges.
Thank you.
Texarkana College.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you very much for your volunteering spirit, your voluntary spirit, and how we're approaching these subcommittee groups. Again, it's my hope that we can have conversations between meeting times within these subcommittees to continue the business of the advisory committee outside of our meetings. Oh, I'm sorry. We've got a few more that we need to. Thank you, Jose, who have held a list. I'm going to look at you over your shoulder. Okay. Another component, and I don't know why I didn't think about this, besides the scholarship and the graduate app is the high school counselor suite. And so a part of that suite is access and information that counselors have to the application constituents of their institutions. So those students who are using the Apply Texas application within their institution. It's a very important part of our high school counselor outreach and service that we provide to them that helps their students transition to our institutions. And so I would like to invite membership to participate in the review and or revision of the high school counselor suite.
Texas State.
BISD.
Thank you.
UT Austin.
Thank you. Three more.
Jeez.
Do I have it all?
Just put us on it. Just three more.
Three more. Three more subcommittee groups that we need to think about. We're going to have to get another room.
It's true.
Yes, let's talk about combining application type.
The combining application type, this is a project that we started last year, looking at the way that we ask questions in the Apply Texas, and for that, the answers of those questions to drive the student to the right application type instead of asking them what type of application type. So this is something that we started talking about it, but it's going to be a couple of years in transition. So
To continue the conversation.
weren't you in the committee? I think Trey. Well, you're going to be in every committee. Yeah. Yes. Well, it's open. It's open.
And we addressed, the technical team addressed this a little bit this year by putting in something that didn't completely satisfy what the requests were, but we tried to figure out a way to help the student make a decision about what kind of apps they want, the app they wanted to fill out, so that if they were a dual credit, they could say that, and then we had some audits that kind of said, okay, well, you say you're dual credit, but it doesn't sound like you really are based on when you say you're going to graduate, or the vice versa. They may say, no, I'm not dual credit. I'm going to Texas State, but oh, by the way, I'm graduating from high school at this time, and I'll actually be starting college at whatever time that there's it sounds like maybe you're a dual credit. So we're trying to deal with that, and we don't know how well it worked. We think it worked fairly well from our end, in that I think we identified a lot of people who, as dual credit, that otherwise would have just been thrown into the numbers on the web page and whatever about applicants. I mean, we're kind of keeping them out, but we're certainly open for looking at this again and doing it, finding another way to do it that might be more satisfactory, if there is such a way for you all.
For the newer people on the committee, they might need to understand that not all these subcommittees meet for hours and days and stuff. There's, this one may not have a lot of discussion with it that needs to come back to the coordinating board, to Ethan. So don't worry about being on these things. If you feel you can contribute, jump in. That being said, Texas A&M will be on that committee.
Alamo Colleges.
Texarkana College.
North Central Texas College.
The name of this
UT
committee
Austin.
exactly?
Combining app types.
Combining app types.
Yeah.
Angelo State.
Texas State.
Okay, fantastic. That's a very generous group for that conversation. The next subcommittee group that we would like to post is the FAFSA and Testing Integration Subcommittee. As you're aware, we've just integrated FAFSA information this year, and have had ongoing conversations about integrating test score information from the testing agencies, College Board and ACT, to be a part of the data download and self-population of applications based on individual students who are making application.
Texas A&M.
BISD.
Texas State.
Angelo State.
Blinn College.
UT Austin.
Laredo Community College.
I have a question for Jose. Is the testing data, or I guess Ethan, Besides SAT and ACT, will it have STAR? Will it have other testing data or just College Board?
At this point, we're looking at just SAT, ACT. The other testing automatically, well, it should come with the transcript information, so the schools should have access to that.
Is the SAT and ACT?
Yeah, SAT and ACT, so that we can get that information, so that the institutions can have that information at a faster, so that they can respond.
What a lot of students do is they hold their scores, because if they take it once or twice and they want to take it 3 and 4 times because they're waiting for the perfect magic score, and so they don't indicate to what universities to send it to till they get close to the deadline date, and then figure they can send the right one. But I guess we would be getting it directly from the College Board, regardless of whether they either held the scores or selected what scores to be released.
Exactly. Right now, we checked this. We did some research last time that the high school question, if you're doing a online registration, the high school question is a required question, so they have to have that school. that question answer. So that's how we're going to be able to track that information and bring it into the system. We haven't gone that far into detail of the technology and how it would be set up, but so we would get that information for those.
Jose, can you clarify that just a little bit? So the test score would be provided via a release by the student in a high school question?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
So is the score coming from the board or coming from
the board?
High school? Okay.
From the board. So that once a student submits the application, it will have testing information within that application. Verified testing information with that application.
Actually, if you think about it, probably the student can, when they say, I want my certain scores to be held because I don't want the university to see them yet, but actually the high school would have access to all of them. They can't hold scores for the high school.
Exactly.
Because we would, as high schools, we would receive them all. So probably what you're saying.
Good conversation. There's one more subcommittee that we'd like to field, and that is a subcommittee that will be working on our conversation and integration with T-Rex. I think that there's somebody who may be interested.
Texas
in
A&M.
There they are.
BISD.
UT El Paso.
UT Austin.
Stephen F. Austin.
Angelo State.
Any other members? Wonderful. Okay, thank you. We will take it, not yet, but when we take a lunch break, then perhaps the subcommittees can informally discuss perhaps chair of each of those committees, and then we'll talk a little bit more about conversations in the interim between meetings. Like I said, those can be conversations that are in an email chain, on a teleconference, or an online meeting protocols that will take place between advisory committee meetings. And then we will also make time in the advisory committee meeting agenda for those groups to meet, or inside or outside the agenda, so that we'll plan for times to meet here in Austin so that everybody can have time together as subcommittees.
And Ethan, I don't know who's going to be managing all of these groups, if that is your joy to deal with, but just make sure that they maybe have my email address, so that I can, at any point, if there's questions for the technical team, that we'll be able to respond as quickly as possible to anything they would want.
Excellent. So it's my hope that we can have chairs of the subcommittees before the end of the day today, and that I can talk to those people before we leave to go to our various parts of Texas. Okay?
Can I be added to the nursing app?
Of course.
North Central Texas College.
Got it.
Does the subcommittee chair have to be from Applied Texas?
Yes.
Okay.
I would feel better if it were. So, and I think it provides legitimacy to the subcommittee. But ad hoc membership or non-voting membership can be a part of that subcommittee. Okay, any other conversations, questions about the subcommittees? Thank you very much for everybody's participation in that. I was trying to do this next item before we break for lunch. I'm not sure if that is any indication over there that it is ready for us. But the discussion of requiring the Social Security number for IRS purposes in the application process. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
So we received this information or this request to put it in as a discussion item from 5 different institutions, I think. And again, we sent the background or the written request from Texas State University on the last email. And again, this is something that institutions want to discuss. They want to make sure that whatever decision or that they do have a good rationale for requiring that information. So,
and let me say, this is currently optional on the application. It's a question about changing that from optional to required.
The one thing that we were thinking about, the recommendation would be to make the Social Security question a dynamic question, or make it a required question if you're a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, and then not even have that question as an option if you're not one of those 2 categories, because I think that would solve some of that issue. I think with the DACM, students are being able to get some type of number that looks like a social, but it is not really. Is for working purposes, and I'm not the expert on this, but I think that we would just get verifiable socials if it's a dynamic question.
I mean, as you can tell, one of the requests came from my institution. Is everybody aware that I think every institution just about got, at least the threatening fine letter from the IRS. I guess one of the things I would ask from somebody who's been on the committee before for a long time, and maybe even when we went through this whole discussion before, is for some reason we felt like we couldn't require it. So I would ask maybe the coordinating board legal and others to go back in the minutes, et cetera, document why we felt that then and what's different. Because I can tell you as a group, admissions directors would have never wanted to go away from the social. Right. Life was much easier and better then, but we all feel like we had to. So why did we feel that way? And then that allows us, and then what changed that now allows us to go back to this. And if it is all because the IRS said so, then okay. But I think I feel for due diligence that we've got to look backwards as to why. And then again, I think obviously from the admissions perspective, and any of us in Banner, multiple IDs and all this, that life is much easier with the social.
Go ahead. What changed? Are we safe?
That's going to take a little bit of time to go back into the minutes and figure out like what the discussion was, especially if we don't know a particular year that this was decided. We can post the legal question to our legal department, but if we want to figure out like how did we come up with this decision, that might take a while.
We might be able to help, with that if we just go back and kind of see where we started EID creation. But it seems like my first foray on the committee was around 2003, 2004, and I remember it being a heated discussion then. The IRS hasn't changed since that time. They were around then. So even deeper is the question of, may it not have been a question of what the IRS was requiring, but I think it's going to probably be a question of where the liability sits. So yes, they did, but was there something else that predicated us not requiring it, even if the IRS was there? And then if there's a different decision now, still the legal question of liability of collecting that data and where it sits. Because I think from some standpoint, we don't want to touch it as an institution from a legal standpoint.
Yeah.
So is it with the board that has the liability, Apply Texas that's sitting there? And I think that's a fair question to ask. Also.
Exactly. And then we have to remember, bless you, when was the 1098T established, or,
Well, we seem to get caught by the changes in 1098T reporting.
Yeah.
And so that and when we had to go itemized, and as it gets more and more detailed. But I also believe there was some interpretation of state legislation dealing with Social Security numbers. So any guidance the coordinating board can give us, liability, state legislation.
I think it was a combination of both state and federal practice or current that was driving a lot of this information. Following issues of identity theft and confidentiality was really driving the conversation away from using Social Security numbers. I obviously can't tell you that exact same time either, but that's exactly where that transition took place from required to optional, and now it's come full circle with the IRS saying that we need to make sure we're reporting the Social Security numbers of these students.
Somewhere along the line, I think we all made the switch from you only require it if you have an absolute need for it. And obviously, in that switch, we've proven that we can live without it, though. We can. We have been.
Whether we get back on this committee.
Yeah. But that whole switch in mindset, somewhere along the way.
I think it might also go back to technology, where we started versus looking at dynamic questions now, because back then it was either or. Mm-hmm. If it was required, then everyone had to give it. So it almost pushed us to go to optional, because you have so many, or some of us have, a lot of HB applicants, internationals, et cetera, who apply incorrectly, you name it, but not everyone has a social. So I think that could have been part of it also.
Yeah, because I remember filling it out where it was a required question and you had to put 000.
Yes.
And then now we have the auto check to make sure that number is a valid SSN. So yeah, it could have been technology, but we'll look at that. We'll go back to 2003 and look at the legal, see if there's any legal issues with going back and requiring it.
Point of clarification. So we're looking at the 2015 cycle. We're not looking to make a change currently.
Correct. We don't go back we don't do any type of mid changes unless they're.
I agree, but will you respond to my VP that way? I'm not sure they're not expecting
something for
instantly.
We will respond.
It would be better officially.
Yes, we will.
Okay, so in the interim, then let's table that item until our next meeting, unless there's any objections, since we've got some homework attached to it at this point. Seeing no objections, we'll table that item and move forward. And what we'll do is, since it's high noon, we'll break for lunch, and we'll reconvene right after lunch. Thank you. So I will. I have, before we return to the agenda, I have a conversation topic that I'll introduce that we can conclude with, but to think about as we are waiting for a few members to return from lunch, and that is to say, if we were to, we customarily have 4 meetings throughout the year. I guess you could say that would be quarterly. We're a little off schedule right now, primarily because we were waiting for appointments to conclude or to be ratified for membership. So we will have some business this year with the committee, as you can see from the subcommittee assignments. And we haven't even really started our conversation for revisions to the application. And so one of the recommendations, Jose and I were talking about when we should have our next meeting, and that it probably should be sooner than later. So the first piece I'd like to propose to the group is to think about whether or not you would like to try to meet again next month in December or in January. If either of those are both difficult times for all of us, I know. But despite the challenge of each of our schedules, I think perhaps that may be important, that we have a chance to meet in January, and then we'll look at another opportunity to meet mid-spring prior to perhaps the annual meeting in the summer. The context of the conversation from this meeting and from the next meeting is to identify items for revision for the application for the upcoming year that was going to evolve from both this conversation, from our institutions, both our institutions and institutions at large, and then also as a part of changes in legislation. And so as we look at those pieces going forward, we'll try to make sure that we're adapting the application to meet our needs and those criteria. So the conversation at this meeting, our first meeting of the year, and then our second meeting really helped shape what those application revisions need to look like, and by the third meeting that we set those in place. And that Tim has a chance to review those with his team and decide about prioritization and cost as we look at how we want to apportion the revisions for the upcoming year. So that's something I want you to think about. We're on a rapid schedule, or we've a heightened pace in terms of what we need to accomplish throughout this year, because once we get to the spring, and Tim, you'll have to tell me where in the spring you want to make sure we have a hard stop so that your team has time to make revisions for the upcoming August 1 release. And so for the 2015 application, which we're working on. Any questions about any of that? Exculpatory commentary? Okay. Fantastic. Back to the agenda. Our next item of discussion is on concentrations to the undergraduate majors. Somebody submit that.
Okay, this item was submitted by UT El Paso and Texas State University.
I just chimed in.
One of the issues that we're having at the undergraduate level is that we have specific majors that have concentrations, especially in the liberal arts areas. And they have asked me to propose the question. I'm okay either way, whatever happens. Right now I'm not feeling well.
She is not feeling well. Let the record show.
And I think last year we had the same conversation and same topic, and how an institution can set up those type of things, not even with dynamic. I think it was like some kind of like the way that you set up the majors themselves, and be able to code it that way.
You have to list the major, like subhead, the general major description and then the concentration, and just repeat those with concentration.
And that's the reason that no further action was taken last time. But if we wanted to reopen the discussion.
In the meantime, you're welcome to ask Michelle Walker, talk to MB Walker at tamu.edu for how we do it, because she does it.
Would this be the same solution?
Absolutely. I mean, our grad school's already done that, but I mean, if we were to look at expanding it, my request was that it also be to the grad app.
Yeah, because that's undergrad. That's only grad, right?
Yeah.
Right now, only grads you can actually list. Otherwise, it has to be a dynamic or something of that nature. But as far as undergrad is concerned, SFA think it would be great to have concentrations come in and actually be able to load. See, right now, I mean, they don't load into Banner. Even if there was like a dynamic question asking you about that won't load, that's something that we have to add manually.
I think we talked about this last year, but I think we did not have that functionality up and running, was the answer last year. Do you remember, Tim?
The functionality of having a second, yeah, it's a non-trivial change for us, and so I think the history of this, as far as I remember, is that we've got kind of workarounds, like what has been mentioned, where you have the one pull down and you kind of list the sub-majors kind of within a major, and my understanding is, we just haven't it hasn't been pushed enough as a priority to get to the front of the line, and also I think David can help me on this, but I think it would involve a non-trivial change and an amount of work on our end to do that, and it just hasn't been decided that was enough of a priority to take that amount of time to do that. It would be a fairly major endeavor. If it's worthwhile, then it can be done, but it wouldn't be trivial to add that.
Okay, then why don't we add it to the list of things to consider, and when we get to our overall all items to consider, we can figure out how far it goes up in way of priorities.
So noted. Sorry. So noted. We'll keep that on the agenda for the possible revisions for the application.
And is that going to be taken up by a committee or just taken up in another meeting or what?
By this committee.
Okay, by the committee of the whole?
Yeah.
Okay. Because what I can do in the meantime is get together with the technical team and with maybe some more, we can spend a little bit of time on some more details so we can really flesh out what the change would be and how much time and how much a percentage of our available time would be spent on that versus something else, and we can give a more intelligent answer to what it would really take.
Could we add just a little bit of cost analysis in there? Just a draft, nothing like too detailed?
You mean just, I'm not sure what you mean. You mean just, that's what I mean really in terms of cost analysis, is just the time.
Okay.
The development time, that we have, a certain number of developers and a certain amount of time to put in changes, all the changes for the year, and so we try to prioritize. And so if something is a bigger change, which takes a higher percentage of that time, we just want to make sure that it's something that the committee really wants and understands that maybe some other things might not get done as a result.
Thank you. Our next discussion item is on dual credit and early admission. Is this Kevin? Is this Kevin? Okay. Kevin.
Well, I guess it was just a question. As far as the early admission part, is the school using early admission? I'm not sure where we got that definition of early admission from and who is using it. And I was just wondering if it was being confused with early college, high school, because that would be our preference, at least to add early college, high school to that question, which is the question that Tim had, and a definition, or because I'd never heard of early admission before this particular.
I think I can
came
help
out.
you with that, Kevin, because I came from the university level, so when I went to the community college, I didn't understand it either. They use early admission as sort of a way to do concurrent enrollment. So they only open it up to senior level students, sometimes juniors in specific situations. Then that reserves dual credit for the purpose of dual credit at that with that meaning. So that's how I have to separate it in my mind, is that it's really meaning concurrent enrollment.
Okay. And that's fine. That's exactly, I figured it was probably a 2-year school. But so I guess my question is actually the next one. Can we add early college high school to be a third option on there? And then I think that would, fit SFA and probably some other schools as well.
Do we? I guess we'll have some follow up probably from the technical team at that. And we have that capability now of the options that have already been mentioned. And then just if they choose that, then what does that mean for the app? Are there certain?
Yeah, I don't think it would be anything different. It would just help us.
It just identifies another group of people that might they're using the app to not actually apply to college. Is that okay? We can look at that. Yeah, that sounds.
I guess for us, it makes a little bit of a difference because at UT El Paso, we're using the early admission for the accelerated students. These are the students that graduate with their associates by the time they're juniors, so we're bringing them in at that point in time. So if we add early college high school, I would have confusion on my side because we're already bringing in the early college high schools as early admissions.
I'm afraid we'll always be on the quest of trying to figure out how 17-year-olds think. And it never be quite clear. I mean, if they can't answer are you applying as a freshman with credit or without credit? And I have trouble identifying what are all the early college high schools because they're so different in how they describe themselves and how they've set up that I think it would be difficult. I mean, I agree. I'd like to know who they were and et cetera, but I'm even having trouble.
Was that?
Well, I'm not talking about past students. For me, for our question, the first question, this is saying, basically the first question says, are you applying for early college high school, dual credit, or early admission? Okay. Well, at this time, it just says, are you applying for dual credit or early admission? And I would like to add or early college high school, but that's just, and then if they say yes, then of course it's going to take out the one question as far as residency is concerned, and the rest of the application is the same. It just helps us as an institution because we do have both dual credit and early college high school. We don't have early admissions, but if that doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
is
that'd be
early,
SFA's
is early college high school, the terms early college high school and early admission, is that defined?
There is
a consistent defined.
There's a definition for both of those for dual credit and early admission when that question comes up.
So that's TEA.
But only
defined?
certain schools are actually early college high school, which is what Stephanie's talking about. Mm-hmm. So my question is, is that a dynamic group that changes from semester to semester? Because if it doesn't, if we could get the question built in the Apply Texas application, when the student clicks early college high school, it gives a drop down of choose your school. Then that way you can identify them from the app level, who they are. It helps with anybody else wanting to separate early college from early admission and dual credit at the same time.
And we may be talking about different things. You're trying to say how do you admit them into your early college high school?
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
identifying them as freshman applicants. And later. So mine's different. So I don't want to.
I think last year they decided that we didn't want to sort of pursue that route, but this was something a little different. So my particular question was for students who are applying for early college high school or for dual credit this year.
So go ahead.
So I guess I could just say we heard one sort of that would make it difficult for one school. I'm not sure how everybody else will feel about that particular proposal?
At Tarrant County College, because of the early college high schools that we have, it would help TCC as well to be able to clarify and include the early college high school option for our students. So it would help us.
At Alamo colleges, it will also be beneficial for us. We have 2 early college high schools.
It would help us also. So if it was added, because we are starting that program.
And I believe the last time that we had this discussion was that the institutions would have the option of doing a dynamic question, depending on what application type the student is applying to. So you wouldn't put that dynamic question on a freshman application. You would put it under the dual credit or early admission application, and to self-identify themselves whether they're going to a dual credit or an early college high school. And that's the other thing. It's hard to know what high schools are early college high schools, because I don't think there's an official list.
Well, the problem is there really is no dual credit application anymore. The dual credit application is the freshman application. There's not a difference. The freshman application is the dual credit application now, because they combined it last year.
Yes, and I think that's how we got the combination, is by them answering those kind of questions. They would the system will automatically select them for that dual credit application, which deletes the affidavit part of the freshman application.
Right, but then now if you make a dynamic question, it's not specific to the dual credit or early college high, because it is the freshman application. So of course, if it was a dynamic question, it would have to be on the freshman application. Am I right? I mean, you can't differentiate anymore.
I think so. You would just have to say, if you are blah, 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 you answer the following question. But yeah, I think it would just have to be there on all of them. And we've just marked that they said, yes, they're applying for dual credit or not. You know.
I think we can relook at this issue too. I mean, if other institutions are developing or creating early college high schools, then this is again, it's just knowing the type of questions that we want to ask at the beginning, so that students will the system will select the right application type. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue.
Right. I just wanted to put it out there.
Now, we can look at it. The subcommittee that is looking at the combining apps, I think that's the subcommittee that needs to take this issue.
So that that is a conversation for the next discussion item on early college high schools. I think that's a very good point. We're talking about 2 different needs assessments there, whether it's a application process or whether it's a notification process. And so, yes, let's put those both to the subcommittee for combining app types and see what we can determine for that participation.
I don't think I've made myself available for that committee. I think I need to do that now.
Thank you for your volunteering spirit.
Thank you.
Could you also add TJC to that one?
Who was the second? I'm sorry. Thank you. Other conversation or discussion on those 2 topics of dual credit early admit and or early college high school?
I was just going to comment that I know in our district, every high school is now an early college high school within the high school. We have our early college high school that's connected to the University of Texas at Brownsville, and those students will graduate with an associate's degree. But because we received money, it was PSJ and BISD that received money from the Gates Foundation. There is now an early college high school concept within each high school, and that's kind of sort of where everybody's going, at least in the valley and in the lower valley. So this is going to become really important because there will be a lot of students. Not every student in all of our high schools will graduate with an associate's degree, but they will graduate with quite a number of hours.
Sure. Well, and that goes right back to the first part. They need to have a good application process.
A good application process.
Especially with that kind of participation. Excellent. So the discussion leads into the consideration of changes to applications for the 2015-2016 cycle. We've got these two items for consideration of changes, and the high school diploma question and the teacher certification levels. I submitted teacher certification levels, so I'll talk about that. High school diploma question.
I'm not sure who submitted it, but it's just basically the House Bill 5, adding the additional diploma type.
I guess my question would be, are we going to believe it if it comes in on the application, or we're going to wait to see it on the transcript? And if we're not going to believe it, why ask?
I agree.
Right now,
because there's too often there's schools that would submit high school transcripts to us, and they would leave it blank because they would say, we're not going to determine what the high school diploma type is until the student actually graduates. Or we've reported it as this, but then they really realize that, oh, no, I can do the minimum or a different one and get out faster. So now we won't believe it until.
Currently, our high school transcripts have a default, like, for example, in the recommended distinguished. So if you get a transcript from any student in BISD, it's going to say recommended because that's a default. It does not get changed until for sure they meet the measures, the final, or there was an extenuating circumstance and they had to go to minimum. So I would imagine that that's what's going to happen with what's going to happen next year. And pretty much it's going to be maybe a default in the district rather than saying this one's on this one, this one's on this one, this one's going to have this, because it's going to be a little confusing as we change and we adapt.
So,
right there with you.
So the current question that has the high school diploma question is actually determining Texas grant eligibility. So with Texas grant, I believe, and then we have to double check, that students with the foundation program might qualify for the Texas grant. And again, we'll double check. And then the other change would be this question is only for four-year institutions because Texas grant is going to become a four-year program. So we have to look at including some type of language on if we want to keep this question at all. How is this question being used right now?
I don't think it is.
What I was going to say is that, because I sit on the financial aid advisory too, and I know that that's used to at least award, but they're never going to disperse until, they're not going to disperse funds until they confirm.
Well, at the institution level, not financial aid office, but the admissions office, how is this question being used, if any?
I'm not using it.
So it might be something that we just need to take the question off if it's not being used at the institution.
Well, and I don't know how this affects, well, it very well may affect UT, who will need to have that designation for top 10% considered. Right. So the designation of diploma type.
Yeah, I think it'll depend if they'll take it from the app or are they going to need it from the transcript. And I just don't think any of us are taking it off the app. It'd be like saying, tell us your test scores. We're going to wait for the official scores as well.
Yes.
Yeah, 1,600.
Okay, very good. So that was good conversation. Consideration of change or revision. Does that need to be a part of our conversation for going forward to submit to the Apply Texas technical team?
Is there any way that we can take this discussion at the TACRO meeting next week and then just ask admission officers how they're using this question? And then if they're not using it for any purpose, then it just needs to come off.
Good. The second item, teacher certification levels. Our College of Education asked me to bring this piece up. Let me see if I can find mine.
Do you have to do that yearly?
Yes, my College of Education has got some interesting ideas every year, and that's really, I'm glad that they're so involved. They're a great college at Texas Tech University, of one of which I'm a proud alum. So the question is, will you seek teacher certification? And for the information drop-down box, levels are incorrect, and that they should read the following. Elementary level should read early childhood through grade 6. Middle school / junior high level should read grades 4 through 8. Secondary / high school level should read grades 7 through 12. And all levels should read early childhood through grade 12. I think that may have something to do with reflective and teacher certification. And so I think it's just a point of making sure that that's consistent with state certification levels. So that's really just not a cosmetic change, but an iterative change on that distribution.
Yeah, on this question, we actually, we didn't make the correction because it wasn't passed at the time of last year. So now that it's been approved by the State Department, State Board of Education, then we can make this change.
Okay. Let me then turn the floor over to the committee for any new business. There appears to be some. For considerations of change, new business can be that, yes. Mm-hmm.
I have two issues, items.
For change?
Items. First is the consideration of adding a search by first name. And you can't do that, see? Yeah. We had heard that wouldn't be too much of a big concern to do, but first the response was that it should only be for hard to find names or something. And I said, no, I need to find all the Susans. You know, I might only have a name Susan, but I don't want it to be dash, comma. That's what you get. So that one.
So you don't want a little pop-up that says, okay, is this really?
Yes.
For hard to find names?
Yes. It is a hard to find person, not necessarily a hard to find name.
I think that's something the team's already looking at, David. Is that's right, and that is something that's doable on our end. Yeah, I think they're already looking at that.
Excellent. And the second one was the ability to add the display of the search criteria to the results page, because I can never remember what I put in for my criteria when the results come up. And oh, no. So you have to start all over again. So if there's white space up at the top there on the right, if you could just... I'm not the only one. I just admit to my
You don't want to, if user equals, and then we put that up if it's you?
Not if user equals Cheryl Ridge, you know. No.
We can take a look at that.
Thank you.
That sounds doable.
Those are critical to me, even though I won't be here.
They will be your lasting legacy.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we will call it the Cheryl Rich
search engine
designation. Yes.
I'm so excited. Thank you all.
Other items for consideration? Mr. Hadaway?
Yes, it has been brought forth from some colleagues from the other two-year colleges about looking at the use of the Applied Texas application on mobile devices, the ability for that to be done. I don't know, I think at one point we maybe talked about last year gathering information, if y'all were able to gather that to see how many had been done previously, to see if this is something that we want, that we should move forward with.
Yeah, the only thing that we've done, I have done just some research, and we run between 5 and 10% currently, just based on tools we have to look at it. We're running about, last time I looked at 1 month's worth of data recently. There was a pretty heavy use month, and we were running about 6% on an iPad type device, and about 4% on iPhone and Android type things. So we're running right now about 12%. I didn't specifically look to see if that's how they fill in their essays, but looking at quite a bit. I was actually kind of surprised it was that high, but right now that's the current breakdown.
Have you looked at it from the admin view side as well?
No.
That might be worth some.
Looking at you mean seeing how many administrators do that? No, I've not did that. Are there administrators who would do that kind of thing?
Yeah.
I have not. I have not looked at the admin site. I was looking at the app itself, and because it came up, it's come up before to look at this, and it's a valid question. I just don't know what it would take to. I don't know whether on an iPad type device whether you actually need to make much change to the app to make it, or any to make it work. On iPhone, probably we would want. If you wanted to make a change, it would take some retooling or the creation, in essence, of a new site for that purpose.
So that may be quite an investment of time on that development.
I would assume so, but not having done that myself, we'd want to look into it. Yeah.
Thank you, Trey.
Just for further information, I think that Tarrant County has redone their site to that, and there may be somebody to look with or partner with on that.
I can connect us with the right person.
Other conversations or new business for consideration to the Apply Texas community?
I always have address issues.
Stay in one place.
I would I would actually like for the apartment box to come back. I know that it won't be address checked, but that's fine. We're finding we're getting a lot of applications without an apartment number on it. So it's coming back insufficient address. We got a lot less than when we had the address box. And from what we found out, the clean address, it won't check the box, but it won't hurt the software. So if that was the issue, you can bring it back. Okay. And then secondly, right now, even if we don't bring it back, you did add verbiage to the bottom that says if you have an address, please add it, but it's way at the bottom. It would be nice if it was at least in line with address box 2 instead of way at the bottom, because I think they're not.
The note about about apartment?
Right. The note about apartment is way at the bottom of the address rather than up toward where they would actually put the address. That's my thoughts.
I don't remember. I don't think I was involved when the apartment came off, so I don't remember. I wasn't party to the discussions about why that happened the way it did. I don't think it was taken off. In this case, not necessarily just because of the address cleaning, but we can certainly take a look at that, and certainly moving text if it makes it clearer, if people are not seeing where to put the apartment, then and we can help them with better text or better placed text. That's a real good use of our time.
I'd like to piggyback off Kevin's address issue and see if there's a way to add notes to the address section to clarify for some of our students what exactly a physical address is, what you're plugging in at this spot. I know that no one understands it, but we do as we process applications. So if, as institutions, we could put specific data there as, you know, I mean, in some cases, something as literal, where do you lay your head at night? Something like that to help our student population out. It makes residency when you're a institution at a border, and we have special waivers. It makes it difficult for us to set residency status for students because they don't understand. We're still getting a lot of students that are plugging in that P.O. box on that first address option, and they're not giving the physical, and then they're getting holds, and then they're getting the highest tuition rate because they haven't provided it to us. So if we had the ability to, not necessarily dynamic questions, but sort of like what you have with majors where you can put specific information when you're setting up the app, we can do that there as institutions. That would be extremely helpful in the residency realm.
But I'm sure that everyone probably has that issue, being also on the border between Texas and Oklahoma. We also have that issue because people just get confused about physical, preferred, mailing. It's very confusing to them. And no matter if we know what the definition is or not, if they don't, it's wrong.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Any other items for consideration? Any other items of new business?
I do have one for consideration.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's been asked before, but just this last fall, or actually for our winter mini-mester, when we have actually went to it being its own term. So when students apply, they actually have to apply for spring semester, and then we in-house have to create something to catch those to put them in the mini-mester term. Has it been asked before to actually have winter or like May mini-mester terms in Applied Texas that students could actually apply for? Like the summer 1 and summer 2 are broken out.
If I recall, that's been brought up in the past, but it didn't serve enough. I keep doing that. Sorry, serve enough people to make a change, but I don't know if that's the case. So I'm just remembering past conversations about it.
I think it was discussed that it was confusing to the student.
We just created a winter mini term that starts in December, and since it's part of the spring, we're just asking a dynamic question on the app.
The trick is in the timing of the app and when it's open, and then how that corresponds to your mid-mester term. And so that's a good point. It almost, because of the variability of it, of these mid-mester terms by institution, it almost always has to be a dynamic question based on institution type. Because otherwise we would have to list a tremendous amount of terms, perhaps. Tremendous amount. But mid-mester, May-mester, June-mester, winter-mester. Not saying no, though. I mean, if this is the way the committee wants to go, but that's some historical perspective on that. Okay. Yes, sir.
I don't have an item for consideration, but I do have a request for an explanation, if possible, if we're through with consideration stuff. I don't want to derail the conversation if it's.
Announcements, is that what you're telling me?
Let me ask,
No, it's really not an announcement.
can I just ask one more thing? Where did we end up on, I might have been doing something, on the discussion of concentrations that I had you write to Michelle? What are we doing with that? Loading, or are we doing anything with it, Tim and David? Are we moving toward that?
Sounds like a lack of concentration.
Yes.
I'm old and retiring.
That is something that is under consideration.
Alone. Thank you.
Yes.
It's under consideration.
Tim said that they would take a look at it.
We'd take a look at it. I think there was a little group that was going to. The what? Right.
Was it on the combined app? Oh,
I thought that was early college.
that was early
That's
college
the dual
part,
credit
yeah.
early college high school question.
Oh, you're talking about the the extra major.
Yeah.
A sub-major category.
Right. And I think we
I thought we left it on the list of things to be considered
Right.
and then determine resources.
Oh, that was it.
Right, 'cause it's not, it's not trivial, and there are a couple of workarounds, and we just have to see whether they still are okay or whether you want to invest the time to make
Yeah,
that
I
change.
think for next meeting, come back with the number of hours
Yeah.
so that we can put
That's
in
what
the
it was.
list.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So, for people who are new to the committee, that is a very good educational moment there to say that we will, as we provide consideration, Tim provides feedback in terms of the investment of time and resources to the development, considering how much time that he has available, how much time is necessary for the transition or revision prior to the release of the next application. And so that's a part of this process as his team provides feedback on resource and development time, and then we will prioritize by what we can get accomplished through this year. Any other considerations? Any other comments?
I've been asked by one of our constituents to, if you could, explain the backup procedure if the Applied Texas server were to go down during a peak enrollment period. That's not my question, that's somebody else's.
Wasn't mine. Don't look over here.
No, that's good, and it's not my expertise, but we piggyback on the infrastructure at the University of Texas at Austin, and so we have good backup procedures that we're just kind of we're a small part of the database structure and part of the money that is spent by the constituent institutions. A decent amount of it goes to the infrastructure, to supporting the infrastructure at the University of Texas, and so we really, in a way, benefit because we don't have to pay a lot extra for this kind of thing. We're just a small part of the computer use and mainframe and other computer use at UT, and we just contribute to that backup. So it's I think it's right now it's pretty stable. It's a stable situation, and we're just simply kind of contributing to that, and don't have to do that on our own. So it's a good question, and it's an important question because these things happen. But we're one of many contributors to a central group of professionals and quite an overlap, I think, of resources that would take care of that.
So maybe at some point we could get someone who actually owns the entire process to come in and explain the contingency plan?
It appears to be yes.
Yeah, I can. You want? I can get details on how that exactly what steps would be taken. I've probably seen them and they're just not coming to mind while I'm sitting here.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah,
because I'd like to know like the communication plan, and just a normal contingency plan on what happens.
Okay.
Thanks for doing that, Tim.
Sure.
That's a very good question and comment in light of what we've just recently experienced, and So we appreciate that. And I would note that as long as I have been doing enrollment management with Apply Texas, it has not been an issue. And that's not as long as some of you guys.
Well, and
particularly,
yeah, it's important because this is, we in my other role as in admissions at UT Austin, I deal with a lot of computer systems, and they're always being restarted and upgraded and patched, and occasionally go down, and we being the team and myself are always making sure that those people that we work with, who are part of the system staff at UT Austin, know that we consider this an application that needs to always be up. There are certain things at universities where, if a few web pages go down here or there for a few hours or a day or something, it's not the end of the world. But we expect that we take the attitude that this thing should be up 24/7 every day of the year. And that's our goal.
Cheryl.
Okay, I just got one too. Is there any kind of an ability to put an audit in for students who apply for an admission term prior to their graduation date? So, they want to come in for spring, but they don't graduate. It's an error. Just for that mismatch, but, I don't know if it'll affect those with early college issues.
We do. David, we have something. Do we have anything like that? I know that we look at that when we determine if they choose, say, an early, that they are an early, but then their dates don't seem to indicate that. I think we do have some audits on that. I'm not sure if they just choose a 4-year freshman and they don't say that I'm early admission or anything. Do you know off the top of your head whether we do any audits? Yeah, I was thinking that we might have something in place where we would say, wait a minute, you look like you're choosing an entrance year that's after what you said you were graduating from high school, before, but you didn't say you were in dual credit. And if we don't have an audit like that, I would think we should be able to take a look at that. But I think the chances are decent that we might already have that in place, although it may be a recent addition.
That was from Michelle Walker, who's my undergrad person. So she must be seeing that in her processing.
Okay.
Look.
I know at Angelo State we see it a lot of in our spring applicants. They select a spring when they haven't graduated yet, and so we're constantly calling those students.
And they won't graduate till after that.
Right.
Okay.
We see that a lot at SFA too.
I think the verification point, we did that for the dual credit. So if institutions are not using the dual credit application, then the checkpoint is not being followed.
That's possible.
So we need to put that
possibility. Yeah.
That verification point in the freshman application.
Okay.
Any other comments for the committee or any other considerations? Okay, before I entertain a motion for adjournment, I would like to ask that the committees stay momentarily so that we can determine the chairs of each of those committees and have a conversation about just initial meeting times. If your subcommittee has already determined a chair, that's great. The subcommittee can't exactly. That's what happens. You leave early.
Right.
The subcommittees don't have to stay. If I could just talk to the chairs for a moment of the subcommittees.
Will you tell us who you've gotten chairs for? Which subcommittees?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I got it right there.
Yes. Okay. So diploma verification protocol. I have the University of Texas and Texas State co-chairing that piece.
Which one's that?
The HB5. Yeah.
Okay.
We can determine this right now. Nursing application. Yes, we'll still need a chair
Yes, but we still need an official chair.
of that subcommittee. Thank you, Elizabeth. Scholarship application.
Kedra.
Yeah. Well, I'll read the respondents of the participating. How about that? That may help. Texas A&M, Texarkana, North Central Texas, Texas State, BISD, Laredo, Tarrant County. Anyone from that group would like to be the chair of that committee?
I don't want A&M to chair that because the people, I'm going to ask from people outside of my group to be involved in it, so.
We might want to have a dual
A 2
chair
and
right now.
4 year?
Yeah, because of the other part of this charge to look at doing the a standalone application.
You will volunteer for 2 year.
Okay.
Texas A&M is the, and Texas State are the other two.
I know, but I'm volunteering someone off.
North Central Texas just volunteer.
Right, well, we need a
Chair.
4 year for
Oh.
co-chair.
Ethan said he'd be happy to chair that.
We'll, yeah.
You don't want to let somebody off the committee on this one?
Yes, I am. Either one of you two?
I'm finding it hard. What do you think, Kathy? We'll do it.
Thank you very much, Texas A&M.
We'll find somebody.
The graduate school application?
I mean, Texas A&M.
Okay. I think Trey and I will handle the annual meeting since that's really not a reporting committee. High school counselor suite? That members include Texas State, Brownsville ISD, UT Austin, Texas A&M, Western Texas College.
Ethan, last year I was on that committee, and one of the difficult parts of the colleges and the universities participating in that area is we have no access to that. So, since there is one high school person on our committee, it would seem logical.
I can see all of the schools at one time in counselor suite, which is opposed to each of the high schools. But I thought I couldn't chair anything because
Oh, she's not a member.
I'm not a member.
She's not a voting member.
I've just been here like 13 years, but I'm not a member. I can't.
Texas State will chair if you'll give us access, because I agree. I don't know how, I mean, at least we could show snapshots.
The region
The
one is the.
snapshots I've got, they won't give it to you because of FERPA issues.
I can get it for you. Oh, no, but she's not in my region. Because in our region, Minerva lets me know who's asking for it, and then I tell her, yes, you can have access to whoever has in that region. No?
Rada's getting close there.
We'll get you access.
I'll be glad to help whoever it is, because I do have.
Or at least the committee members, because, I mean, it is going to be hard to. Good, thanks, Trey.
And we're on that committee too.
Well, I was going to say I do happen to have an at-home connection who is a counselor at the local high school. Some days she's nice to me and some days she's not, but she is a local connection.
Then I defer to you. You can chair.
Yeah, you can chair.
But at this point, I don't know if she's I mean, I'm not sure what access she's got, so. But we can try from that standpoint if you'd like, and bring her on. Can we bring her on as an advisory?
Yeah.
Part of the advisory. Yes. I know anyone, but I didn't know if we could delve into the high school ranks if we need to do that.
Yeah, we can.
Combining application type. That includes Texas A&M, Alamo College, Texarkana, North Central Texas, UT Austin, TWU, Angelo State, Texas State, Stephen F. Austin, TJC. Those.
On TWU.
As long as there's a committee member who is the chair of the committee, you can bring anybody in who is not on the committee to serve in that subcommittee. Okay. Would you like to chair that? Thank you very much. FAFSA testing,
A&M.
Texas A&M. T-Rex, I also have Texas A&M, unless anybody else wants them.
They can come with us.
Okay. All right, so those are the chairs. Let me repeat the chairs of the subcommittees. Diploma verification, UT Austin, Texas State co-chairs. Nursing application is Alamo College in cooperation with the coordinating board. Scholarship application is North Central Texas College and Texas A&M as co-chairs. Graduate application, Texas A&M. Annual meeting for members of the institution is just an administrative committee. High school counselor suite, Texas State. Is that right?
Right.
But one thing about the chair and the co-chair is we will be resources to all these committees, and so we'll be on all of these committees.
All right, I'll keep it.
Okay, so I'm going to keep that as Texas State. Combining application type, TWU, FAFSA testing, Texas A&M, and T-Rex, Texas A&M.
On T-Rex with me in FAFSA and testing.
FAFSA and testing includes Texas A&M, BISD, Texas State, Angelo State, Blinn College, UT Austin, Laredo Community College. T-Rex includes Texas A&M, BISD, UTEP, UT Austin, Stephen F. Austin, Angelo State, and Texas State.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, Ethan, if we're volunteering others, should we send their official name to you? Or just the chair?
We have record, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then as the committee meets for the next meeting, in preparation for the next meeting, we'll try to assemble a written report that we'll submit to the committee. So it is my hope that at our next meeting we can do the following two-stage meeting where we have, for example, on day 2, the Apply Texas Committee meeting, but day 1 is an opportunity for subcommittees to meet. And what we'll do is we'll stagger those through the day so that if you are on more than one committee, you can attend more than one subcommittee meeting. Or if you're like Trey and I, you can try to attend as many or all of those as possible. And that those subcommittees have an opportunity to meet, discuss face-to-face, and compile written report to bring to the committee. Okay? We'll provide a survey for possible meeting dates, if we can doodle that again, to the committee, and we'll try to have our next meeting, if at all possible, in the December to January timeframe. I know that that's a quick turnaround, and I apologize for that, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done for this application cycle, and we'll have to kind of front load it in order to be able to get through all the information, especially with these subcommittees. And so that means that we're going to need to contact subcommittees early, or at least make sure that they're in place this month so that that conversation can begin. If I can meet with the chairs just for a second after the meeting, and then we will. That's my only request for the group. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to ask, I know that I saw the minutes, but are they up on the website so that we can see them sooner?
They will. Yeah, this is something that we're looking at revamping the, making sure that every committee has, I think the last 2 years of minutes, so 2 or 3 years. So we're working on that.
All right. If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Moved and seconded that we adjourn the Apply Texas Committee, Advisory Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much for your time. Safe travels to everybody.
Okay.